The 953-day driving job was supposed to be simple. Pick up a wealthy client, keep your mouth shut, collect the cash. But when Ethan Brooks pulled up to that five-star hotel on a rain-slicked October evening, he had no idea the woman stepping out of those golden doors would shatter every wall he'd built around his heart. Madeline Sterling didn't just need a driver. She needed someone who wouldn't flinch when her perfectly controlled world started to crack. And Ethan? He'd been broken so many times he knew exactly how to stand steady in the storm. If you want to see how a single mom's grief, a millionaire's loneliness, and one honest man's integrity collide into something beautiful, stay with me until the end. And if this story touches your heart, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far our story travels across the world. The rain came down in sheets that Thursday evening, turning downtown Seattle into a blur of neon and wet asphalt. Ethan Brooks sat in his aging Toyota Camry, the one with the cracked leather seats and the stubborn check engine light that refused to stay off, and watched the digital clock on his dash tick toward 6:57 p.m. 3 minutes until the job officially started. $950. He'd read the email 17 times since Monday. 3 days. Airport runs, business meetings, hotel transfers, professional driving services for a VIP client, discretion required, payment upon completion. $950 would cover Sophie's dental work, the electric bill, and maybe, leave enough for new winter boots. The ones she'd been wearing were a size too small, but she never complained. 7 years old and already too good at pretending everything was fine. Ethan adjusted the rearview mirror and caught his own reflection. 36 years old, but the lines around his eyes said 40. Dark hair that needed a trim. The kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix. He straightened his tie, the only one he owned, navy blue and slightly frayed at the edges, and checked the photo clipped to his sun visor. Sophie's gap-toothed grin stared back at him. School picture day, last spring. She'd insisted on wearing her yellow dress, the one Claire had bought her 2 months before the accident. Ethan had hemmed it twice since then because Sophie wouldn't let it go, wouldn't accept that her mama wasn't coming back to buy her new dresses. "Okay, kiddo," he whispered to the photo. "Let's make this count." At exactly 7 o'clock, the glass doors of the Fairmont Olympic Hotel swung open. Ethan's breath caught. She moved like winter itself, cold, beautiful, and utterly untouchable. Madeline Sterling descended the hotel steps with the kind of posture that said she'd never stumbled, never second-guessed, never apologized for taking up space. Her coat was charcoal gray and probably cost more than Ethan's car. Dark hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Heels that clicked against wet stone like a countdown clock. But it was her face that stopped him. Exhausted. That was the word that fit. Not tired. Exhausted. The kind of bone-deep weariness that makeup couldn't cover and money couldn't fix. Her eyes swept the street with the wariness of someone who'd learned to expect disappointment. Ethan stepped out into the rain, suit jacket darkening immediately. "Ms. Sterling." Those eyes locked onto him, gray-blue, like a winter sea, measuring, calculating, finding him wanting before he'd even spoken. "You're the driver." Not a question. "Yes, ma'am. Ethan Brooks." He extended his hand. She looked at it like it might bite her. After a beat too long, she shook it. Brief, cool, professional. "I assume you received the itinerary." "Yes, ma'am. 7 a.m. pickup tomorrow for your breakfast meeting at the Columbia Tower. After that, then you don't need me to repeat it." She moved toward the passenger door. Ethan hurried to open it, rain streaming down his collar. She slid into the seat with practiced efficiency, already pulling out her phone before he'd even closed the door. By the time he climbed behind the wheel, she had a Bluetooth earpiece in and was typing with both thumbs. "Airport," she said without looking up. "Alaska Airlines Terminal. My assistant's flight lands at 7:45. Ethan pulled into traffic, windshield wipers beating a steady rhythm. The city lights smeared across the wet glass like watercolor paint. He kept his eyes on the road and his mouth shut. 5 minutes passed. 10. The silence in the car felt like a third passenger, heavy and expectant. "I have rules," Madeline said suddenly. Ethan glanced at her in the rearview mirror. She still hadn't looked up from her phone. "Yes, ma'am." "First rule? No small talk. I don't care about the weather, your day, or your thoughts on current events. I need quiet to work. Understood. Second, be on time. Not 5 minutes early, not 2 minutes late, on time. Yes, ma'am. Third, the temperature stays at 68 degrees, not 67, not 69. 68, got it. She finally looked up, eyes finding his in the mirror. Do you have any questions? Ethan kept his voice even. Just one. Do you prefer bottled water or Evian? Room temperature. My assistant will provide it. Understood. He paused, then added quietly, For what it's worth, Ms. Sterling, I'm just here to make your 3 days easier. Whatever you need, whenever you need it, I'll make it happen. And if what you need is silence, then I'll just listen. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe. Or suspicion. Like he'd said something in a language she almost remembered but couldn't quite translate. Fine, she said finally, and went back to her phone. The airport run took 40 minutes in rain-thick traffic. Madeline made 6 phone calls, 3 in English, 2 in what sounded like French, 1 in Mandarin that left her rubbing her temples. Her assistant, a nervous young man named Marcus, practically vibrated with anxiety during the return trip. He kept apologizing for things Ethan couldn't identify. A delayed flight, a forgotten document, the rain itself. Madeline's responses were surgical. Fix it. I don't need excuses. I need solutions. Have it on my desk by 6 a.m. By the time they pulled up to the hotel at 9:30, Marcus looked like he might cry. Ethan opened Madeline's door. She swept out without a word, heels clicking toward the lobby. Marcus scrambled after her, juggling a briefcase and carry-on bag. Miss Sterling, Ethan called. She turned, impatient, sharpening her features. Tomorrow, 7 a.m. I'll be here at 6:55. Was that almost a smile? It disappeared too quickly to tell. 6:55 is 5 minutes early? Yes, ma'am, but the first rule is silence and the second is punctuality. Figured I'd rather sin against Rule 1 than Rule 2. This time the smile definitely happened. Microscopic, but there. 6:55, she agreed and disappeared through the golden doors. Ethan sat in his car for a long moment, engine idling, watching rain stream down the windshield. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen, his neighbor who watched Sophie on late nights. She's asleep. I made extra dumplings. Take some home. He smiled, bone-tired but grateful. 3 days. $950. He could do this. Friday morning arrived cold and clear, the kind of October dawn that felt like the world had been rinsed clean. Ethan pulled up to the Fairmont at exactly 6:55, suit pressed, car cleaned inside and out. He'd even splurged on an air freshener, something called new car scent, that mostly smelled like plastic and regret. Madeline emerged at 7 sharp, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing a black suit that probably cost more than Ethan earned in 3 months. She paused when she saw the car. You detailed it. Yes, ma'am. Seemed like the professional thing to do. She studied him for a long moment, then slid into the back seat. Columbia Tower, Park 62 restaurant. The breakfast meeting ran 2 hours. Ethan waited in the parking garage, watching other drivers scroll through their phones or nap. He pulled out the paperback he kept in his glove box, a beat-up Tom Clancy novel he'd been reading for 6 months, 10 minutes at a time, and managed 3 pages before his mind wandered. Sophie had been quiet last night. She'd asked about her mother, not directly, never directly, but in that sideways manner kids used when the truth hurt too much to face head-on. Daddy, do people watch us from heaven? I think so, baby. Even when we're sad? Especially then. She'd nodded, satisfied, and gone back to coloring, but Ethan had stood in the doorway of her room for a long time after she fell asleep, watching her breathe, remembering Claire's last words in the hospital. Take care of our girl. Promise me, I promise. And Ethan, take care of yourself too. You're allowed to live. He'd kept the first promise. The second one was still a work in progress. At 9:15, Madeline reappeared, walking fast, jaw tight. She slid into the car and immediately pulled out her phone. Westlake Mall. Executive offices, north entrance. Her morning unfolded in 90-minute blocks. Meeting, phone call, meeting, phone call. Ethan navigated Seattle's streets with quiet efficiency, staying 5 minutes ahead in his head. Traffic patterns, parking options, fastest routes. By the time they stopped for lunch at 1:30, he'd already refilled her water bottle 3 times and adjusted the temperature twice without being asked. "How did you know I was cold?" she asked suddenly as they sat in the parking lot of some sushi place in Belltown. She'd been inside for 20 minutes. Ethan looked up from his book. "Your shoulders, ma'am. You hunched them forward twice in the last 10 minutes before we stopped. Usually means someone's cold." "You were watching me." "No, ma'am, just paying attention. There's a difference." She stared at him, really stared, like she was seeing him for the first time. "What's your story, Ethan Brooks?" "Ma'am?" "The photo on your visor. You and a little girl." "Wife?" Ethan's throat went tight. "Daughter, Sophie, she's 7. "And her mother?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Ethan kept his voice steady. "Not in the picture anymore." Madeline's eyes narrowed, but whatever she saw in his face made her back off. "I have 3 more meetings today. The last one ends at 7. Then I need to go back to the hotel." "Yes, ma'am." She turned to leave, then paused. "The car is very clean, thank you." It wasn't much, but it felt like something. The afternoon meetings bled into evening. By 6:30, Ethan could see the exhaustion creeping back into Madeline's shoulders. She'd stopped making phone calls and started just staring out the window, jaw working like she was chewing on thoughts too bitter to swallow. "Ma'am?" he said carefully as they left the last meeting. "There's a place about 10 minutes from here. Nothing fancy, just good food, quiet. If you wanted to stop before heading back." She checked her watch, checked her phone, checked her watch again. "I have emails to answer." "Yes, ma'am. Just thought I'd mention it." Silence. Then, "What kind of food?" "Vietnamese. Pho. Best in the city, if you ask the locals." "I don't eat street food." "No, ma'am. This is a real restaurant, family owned. The grandmother cooks everything herself. You'd be the only customer who showed up in a suit that costs more than her stove, but I promise the food's worth it." Was that a laugh? It came out more like a snort, but Ethan counted it as a win. 10 minutes, she said. "If it's awful, I'm deducting the time from your fee." "Fair enough." Pho Thendo sat in a strip mall between a laundromat and a tax preparation office. The neon sign flickered. The windows were steamed. It looked exactly like what it was, a place where people came for comfort, not Instagram photos. Madeline stared at the exterior like it might be a trap. "You're serious." "Deadly serious, ma'am." She sighed, gathered her portfolio, and followed him inside. The grandmother, everyone called her Ba, looked up from the register and broke into a smile that made her whole face crinkle. "Ethan? Sophie not with you?" "Not tonight, Ba. Brought a friend instead." Ba's eyes swept over Madeline's expensive suit and skeptical expression. "Ah, first time pho." "First time here," Madeline said carefully. "You sit. I make you something special." Ba disappeared into the kitchen before Madeline could protest. They settled into a corner booth. The restaurant was nearly empty. Just an old man reading a newspaper and a couple of college students hunched over textbooks. The air smelled like star anise and slow-cooked broth, and something else Ethan couldn't name but always associated with safety. Madeline looked around like an anthropologist studying a foreign culture. "You come here often?" "Once a week, usually. Sophie loves the spring rolls. Ba always gives her extra peanut sauce." He paused. "It's our Friday tradition. After her mama died, we needed routines, something to count on." Madeline's expression softened. "How long ago?" 3 years. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light." The words came out flat, factual. He'd said them so many times they'd lost their edges. "She was coming home from a late shift at the hospital. Nurse, pediatric ICU." "I'm sorry." "Thank you." "That's why you take these jobs?" "Private driving?" Ethan nodded. "Flexible schedule. I can drop Sophie at school, pick her up, be there when she needs me. Can't do that with a 9 to 5. "What did you do before?" The question landed heavier than she probably intended. Ethan traced a scratch in the table with his thumb. "I was an architect, junior partner at a firm downtown." Good benefits, retirement plan, the whole package. He smiled without humor. Then Claire died, and Sophie stopped sleeping, and I stopped being able to sit at a desk pretending to care about office park blueprints. So I walked away. You just quit? More like crashed and burned. But yeah, eventually I quit. Madeline leaned back, studying him. That must have been hard, giving up your career. It was harder watching my daughter cry herself to sleep every night. Ethan met her eyes. Some things matter more than a career, Ms. Sterling. Before she could respond, Ba appeared with 2 enormous bowls of pho, broth so clear it looked like amber, noodles piled high, beef sliced thin enough to see through. She set them down with a flourish, then added a plate of herbs, lime wedges, and chili sauce. You eat, she commanded Madeline. Too skinny. Work too much, I can see. Madeline actually smiled, small, but genuine. You sound like my mother. Smart woman, your mother. You call her? Not recently. You call her. Tonight. Ba patted Madeline's shoulder and swept back to the kitchen. They ate in silence for a while. Madeline approached the pho cautiously at first, but by the 3rd spoonful, her shoulders had dropped 2 inches. She added lime juice, mint, basil, built the bowl the way Ba had taught Ethan years ago. Okay, she admitted finally. This is excellent. Told you. Don't gloat. It's unbecoming. But she was smiling when she said it. They stayed for an hour. The college students left. The old man finished his paper and shuffled out. Bob brought them tea without asking. Jasmine for Ethan, chrysanthemum for Madeline. How did she know? Madeline asked, wrapping her hands around the small cup. Ba knows things. Sophie calls her magic. I call her observant. Madeline sipped her tea, eyes distant. I haven't had a meal like this I can't remember. Usually it's business lunches or hotel room service or protein bars at my desk. What do you do, if you don't mind me asking? I run a consulting firm, corporate restructuring mostly. Companies hire me to come in, assess their weaknesses, and fix them. She said it matter-of-factly, but Ethan heard the weight underneath. Usually that means firing people, cutting budgets, making everything leaner and meaner. That must be difficult. It's necessary. Someone has to make the hard decisions. She set down her tea. But yes, it's difficult. Is that why you're here, in Seattle? A tech company. They're hemorrhaging money and don't know why. I'm here to figure it out and stop the bleeding. She rubbed her temples. 3 days of meetings, then I fly to Portland for another project. Then San Francisco, then back to New York. I haven't slept in my own bed in 6 weeks. Ethan thought about Sophie's bedroom, the yellow walls Claire had painted, the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, the way Sophie always left the closet door cracked because she liked the light from the hallway. Home. That sounds exhausting, he said quietly. It is what it is. Does it have to be? Madeline's eyes snapped to his, sharp. Excuse me? Nothing, ma'am, just thinking out loud. But something had shifted. Madeline stared at him like he'd said something shocking, something she wasn't ready to hear. The silence stretched thin. Finally, she stood. We should go. It's late. Ethan paid the bill. Ba refused to let Madeline contribute, and they walked back to the car. The night air was cold and clean. Stars were visible for once, scattered across the sky like spilled salt. Ethan, Madeline said as he opened her door. Yes, ma'am? Thank you for dinner. My pleasure, ma'am. And stop calling me ma'am, it makes me feel ancient. She paused. Madeline is fine. He nodded. Madeline. Her name felt strange in his mouth. Personal. Like crossing a line he hadn't known existed. They drove back to the Fairmont in comfortable silence. When Ethan pulled up to the entrance, Madeline didn't immediately get out. She sat for a moment, hands folded in her lap, looking at the hotel like it was a prison she'd sentenced herself to. Same time tomorrow? Ethan asked. Yes, 6:55. She reached for the door handle, then stopped. Ethan? That thing you said earlier, about some things mattering more than a career. Yes? Do you regret it? Giving up architecture? Ethan thought about Sophie's laugh, the way she still reached for his hand when crossing the street, how she'd started drawing pictures of the 3 of them, her, Ethan, and Claire. even though Claire was never coming back. Not even once, he said. Madeline nodded slowly, like he'd confirmed something she'd been afraid to believe. Then she was gone, swallowed by the golden light of the hotel lobby. Ethan sat in his car, watching the entrance, feeling the weight of $950 that suddenly seemed less important than the look in Madeline Sterling's eyes when she'd said his name. Saturday morning broke cold and bright. Ethan arrived at 6:55 to find Madeline already waiting outside, coffee in hand, looking like she hadn't slept. The exhaustion had deepened, carved into the lines around her mouth. "Morning," she said, sliding into the car. Not good morning, just morning. "Morning," he echoed. "Rough night?" "Conference call with London at 2 a.m., then New York at 4, then my assistant sent me 17 emails about Monday's schedule." She closed her eyes. "I hate time zones." "Where to first?" "Nowhere for an hour. My first meeting's not until 9. She opened one eye. "Is that faux place open for breakfast?" Ethan grinned. "Ba opens at 6. She'll be thrilled." They drove through empty streets, the city still shaking off sleep. Both Ando's lights were on, warm and welcoming. Ba took one look at Madeline and started clucking like a worried hen. "You look terrible. No sleep. Too much work." She guided Madeline to a booth like she was made of glass. "I make you special soup. Fix everything." "I don't think soup can fix my schedule," Madeline said, but she was smiling. "You watch. My soup very powerful." Ba disappeared into the kitchen. Ethan sat across from Madeline, noting the tremor in her hands as she wrapped them around her water glass. "How long have you been running on empty?" he asked quietly. "Define empty." "Madeline," she sighed, "since my father died 2 years ago. He built the company from nothing, started with corporate law, then expanded into consulting. When he got sick, I took over, kept everything running while he was in treatment, then after..." She trailed off. "I couldn't let it fall apart. It's his legacy." "Is that what he wanted? For you to work yourself to death protecting his legacy? What else am I supposed to do? Live your own life?" Madeline laughed, harsh, bitter. That's easy to say when you're not responsible for 300 employees and their families. When clients aren't paying you 6 figures to solve their problems. When... She stopped, jaw clenched. "Sorry, you don't need to hear this." "Hey." Ethan waited until she looked at him. "I asked, didn't I?" Ba returned with soup and banh mi, Vietnamese sandwiches stuffed with grilled pork, pickled vegetables, and cilantro. She set everything down with authority. "Eat, both of you. Too serious. Life too short for serious all the time." They ate. The soup worked its magic, or maybe it was just the warmth, the quiet, the absence of demands. Madeline's hands stopped shaking. Color returned to her face. "Can I ask you something?" she said eventually. "Sure." "Yesterday, when you talked about Sophie, you said you needed routines after your wife died. What did you mean?" Ethan set down his spoon. "Sophie was 4 when Claire died. Old enough to understand Mama was gone. Too young to understand why. She stopped eating, stopped talking, would wake up screaming 3-4 times a night. The doctor said grief, trauma, give it time. But time just made it worse." "What changed?" "I did. I stopped trying to be both parents, stopped trying to replace Claire, stopped trying to make everything okay. Instead, I just showed up. Every morning, breakfast at 7, every afternoon, park time at 4, every Friday, pho with Ba. Same things, same times, over and over until Sophie knew, really knew, that I wasn't going anywhere. That even though Mama was gone, Daddy was solid, reliable, boring even. That doesn't sound boring, that sounds like love." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "Yeah, well, love is 90% showing up and 10% knowing when to step back." Madeline studied him for a long moment. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know, someone trying to impress me. Someone angling for a bigger tip. Someone who saw me as a means to an end." She picked at her banh mi. "You're the first person in months who's treated me like a human being instead of a walking paycheck." "Maybe you should get better people in your life?" "Maybe I should." They finished breakfast as the sun climbed higher. Ba hugged Madeline goodbye, actually hugged her, ignoring her startled expression. You come back, bring your driver. He good man. He is, Madeline agreed, and Ethan felt heat climb his neck. The rest of Saturday unfolded in meetings and phone calls. But something had shifted. Madeline asked Ethan questions between appointments, about Sophie, about Seattle, about life. He asked her about New York, about her company, about the father whose shadow she was still living in. By late afternoon, they'd fallen into an easy rhythm. She'd look up from her phone and say, "Coffee," and he'd already be pulling into a drive-through. He'd see her rubbing her neck and adjust the seat warmer without being asked. "You're good at this," she said as they waited outside her last meeting of the day. "At driving?" "At paying attention. Comes with the territory. Sophie's 7. You learn to read the signs or you end up with a full-blown meltdown in the grocery store." Madeline smiled. "I'd like to meet her, Sophie." The words hung in the air between them, an offer, a bridge, a risk. Ethan's heart kicked against his ribs. "She'd like that," he said carefully. "She's always asking me about work, about the people I drive. She likes hearing stories." "What do you tell her?" "The truth, mostly. That everyone's got their own stuff, their own struggles, that sometimes people are rude because they're scared or tired or lonely, that kindness matters." "Does she believe you?" "She's 7. She believes everything I say." He paused. "For now, anyway. Give her a few years and she'll figure out I'm making it up as I go." "I doubt that." At 7:30, Ethan pulled up to the Fairmont for what should have been the last time that day. But Madeline didn't get out. She sat in the back seat staring at her phone, jaw working. "Problem?" Ethan asked. "Tomorrow's Sunday. My last day. Flight's at 6 p.m. She looked up and Ethan saw something in her eyes he hadn't seen before. Uncertainty. "I don't have any meetings scheduled. I was supposed to work from the hotel, catch up on everything I've been putting off. But I don't want to." The admission came out quiet, almost ashamed. "I don't want to sit in that hotel room and answer emails and pretend this weekend didn't happen." Ethan turned in his seat to face her properly. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. Something normal. Something," she gestured helplessly. "Something that's not work." "I might have an idea," Ethan said slowly. "If you're interested." "I'm listening." "Sophie has swim class Sunday mornings. Then we usually get ice cream and go to the park. Nothing fancy, just life." He took a breath. "You're welcome to join us if you want." The silence stretched. Ethan's heart hammered. He'd just invited a client paying him nearly $1,000 to spend the day with his daughter. Professional boundaries were probably exploding somewhere. "What time?" Madeline asked. "Swim class is at 10. We could pick you up at 9:30. 9:30. She nodded, decisive. "Okay. Yes." "You sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." She climbed out of the car, then leaned back in. "And Ethan, thank you. For everything this weekend, you've been really kind." "Just doing my job." "No." She shook her head. "You've been doing more than that. And I notice, even if I'm not always good at saying it." Then she was gone, leaving Ethan sitting in his car, mind spinning, wondering what the hell he'd just set in motion. Sunday morning arrived with clouds and a promise of rain. Ethan dressed Sophie carefully, her favorite purple swimsuit under her clothes, hair in 2 neat braids. She chattered the whole time about swim class, about her friend Mia who could hold her breath for 20 seconds, about the pool's diving board that she was almost brave enough to try. "Daddy, is someone coming with us today?" she asked as they drove to the Fairmont. "Yes, baby, a friend of mine. Her name's Madeline." "Is she nice?" "Very nice. But she's also very busy, so we need to make sure she has a good time, okay?" Sophie nodded seriously. "I'll show her my backstroke. Boss says my backstroke is beautiful. I'm sure she'll love that." Madeline was waiting outside the hotel in jeans and a simple sweater, the first time Ethan had seen her in anything but business attire. She looked younger, softer, and absolutely terrified. She climbed into the front seat, another first, and turned to look at Sophie. "Hi," she said, and her voice actually shook. You must be Sophie. Sophie beamed. You're really pretty. Are you a princess? Madeline laughed, a real laugh, startled and genuine. No, sweetie, just a regular person. My daddy says there's no such thing as regular people. He says everyone's special if you pay attention. Your daddy sounds very smart. He is. He knows everything. Sophie leaned forward. Do you know how to swim? I used to. It's been a long time. I can teach you. I'm really good. My teacher says I'm a natural. They drove to the community pool in the university district. Sophie kept up a steady stream of chatter about school, about her friends, about the loose tooth that wouldn't come out no matter how much she wiggled it. Madeline listened with the intensity of someone taking mental notes, asking questions that made Sophie light up. The pool was chaos. Kids shrieking, parents shouting, chlorine smell thick enough to taste. Sophie ran to join her class, then stopped and ran back. Daddy, will you watch? Always, baby. She turned to Madeline. You too? I wouldn't miss it, Madeline said, and meant it. They sat in the viewing area, plastic chairs and condensation-streaked windows, and watched Sophie paddle through her lesson. She waved every 30 seconds, checking to make sure they were still watching. She's wonderful, Madeline said quietly. She's my whole world. I can tell. Madeline watched Sophie attempt a flip turn, laughing when she came up sputtering. How do you do it? Alone, I mean. You do what comes next, then you do the thing after that. Eventually, you've built a life. Is it enough? Just building a life? Ethan thought about that. Most days, yeah. Some days, no. But those days get fewer the longer we keep going. Madeline nodded slowly. I don't remember the last time I just sat, watched something without checking my phone, existed without a purpose. You're doing it now. I am, aren't I? She smiled, sad, wistful. It's harder than it should be. After swim class, they went to Molly Moon's for ice cream. Sophie got her usual salted caramel with rainbow sprinkles and insisted Madeline try the honey lavender. It's the best, Sophie declared. Daddy doesn't like it because he says it tastes like flowers, but that's what makes it good. They walked to Volunteer Park, ice cream melting faster than Sophie could eat it. The clouds had broken up, letting through watery October sunshine. Sophie ran ahead to the playground, leaving Ethan and Madeline to follow at a slower pace. Can I ask you something personal? Madeline said. Sure. Do you ever get lonely? The question landed soft but heavy. Ethan watched Sophie climb the jungle gym, fearless and laughing. Every day, he admitted. I miss having someone to talk to after Sophie goes to bed. Miss having a partner. Miss... He trailed off. But lonely's different from alone. Alone I can handle. It's the lonely that sneaks up on you. Yeah, Madeline said quietly. Yeah, I know what you mean. They sat on a bench while Sophie played. Other parents surrounded them, couples mostly, trading kid-watching duties, stealing kisses, being effortlessly together. Ethan had stopped letting it hurt somewhere around year 2. Why consulting? He asked. If you don't mind me asking. Madeline was quiet for a long moment. My father was brilliant, charismatic. Everyone loved him. He could walk into a failing company and turn it around through sheer force of will. She picked at the edge of her ice cream cup. I wanted to be like him, to make him proud. So I followed his path, law school, corporate law, then consulting when he started the firm. Did it work, making him proud? I don't know. He died before I could ask. Her voice cracked. 2 years, and I still don't know if he was proud of me. If I measured up, She stopped, jaw clenched. Sorry, this is too much. Hey! Ethan waited until she looked at him. It's not too much. And for what it's worth, I think anyone who works as hard as you do, who cares as much as you clearly do, would make any father proud. Tears welled in Madeline's eyes. She blinked them back angrily. You don't know me. I know you showed up this morning when you could have stayed in that hotel. I know you listened to a 7-year-old talk about swim class like it was the most important thing in the world. I know you're exhausted and lonely and still trying your best. He paused. That counts for something. Madeline wiped her eyes, laughing shakily. You're dangerous, you know that? How's that? You make me want things I gave up on years ago. Before Ethan could respond, Sophie ran over, breathless and grinning. Madeline, come push me on the swings. Daddy can't push high enough. I push perfectly high, Ethan protested. But I want to go higher. Sophie grabbed Madeline's hand. Please? Madeline looked at that small hand in hers like it was made of glass. Then she stood, let herself be pulled toward the swings, and Ethan watched her transform. She pushed Sophie gently at first, then higher still, until Sophie was shrieking with delight and Madeline was laughing, really laughing, head back, uninhibited. Something shifted in Ethan's chest, something that felt dangerous and necessary all at once. They spent 2 more hours at the park. Sophie showed Madeline everything. The good climbing trees, the spot where she'd found a caterpillar last summer, the bench where she and Ethan sat when they needed to talk about sad things. Madeline absorbed it all, asked questions, remembered details. By the time they headed back to the car, Sophie was yawning, ice cream sugar crash setting in. She climbed into her car seat without protest, unusual, and was asleep before they'd left the parking lot. That was perfect, Madeline said quietly. Thank you for letting me be part of it. Thank you for being here. They drove in comfortable silence, Sophie's soft snores filling the car. When they pulled up to the Fairmont, Madeline didn't immediately get out. I need to tell you something, she said. Okay. This weekend? These 3 days? They've been the first time in 2 years that I've felt like a person instead of a machine. She turned to face him, eyes bright. You and Sophie, you've given me something I didn't know I was missing. Ethan's heart hammered. Madeline, let me finish, please. She took a shaky breath. I don't know what this is. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I don't want it to end here. I don't want to fly back to New York and pretend this was just a job. Just 3 days, just nothing. What are you saying? I'm saying I'd like to see you again. If that's something you'd want. If I'm not completely misreading this situation. The moment stretched, fragile and enormous. In the back seat, Sophie shifted in her sleep, murmuring something about butterflies. You're not misreading it, Ethan said quietly, but I need you to understand something. I can't do temporary. I can't do casual. Sophie's been through too much, and I won't bring someone into her life who's going to leave. I understand. Do you? Because you live in New York. You work 80 hours a week. You're on planes more than you're on the ground. And I'm a single dad in Seattle who drives for a living because I can't handle the pressure of a real career anymore. He forced himself to meet her eyes. We're different worlds, Madeline. Different lives. I know. She reached out, hesitated, then took his hand. But I also know I haven't felt this alive in years. And maybe that means something. Or maybe it means we're both lonely, and this weekend was a beautiful exception to our regular programming. Maybe. She squeezed his hand. But what if it's not? Sophie stirred awake, blinking sleepily. Are we home? Almost, baby, Ethan said. Madeline has to go catch her plane. Sophie's face fell. Already? Madeline turned in her seat. Yeah, sweetie, but thank you for today. For teaching me about swimming and ice cream and good climbing trees and... Will you come back? The question hung in the air. Madeline looked at Ethan, then back at Sophie, and something in her face shifted. Decision, determination, fear, all mixed together. I'd like to, she said, if that's okay with you and your dad. Sophie looked at Ethan. He nodded. Okay, Sophie beamed. Next time, I'll show you my room. I have glow-in-the-dark stars and everything. I can't wait. Madeline climbed out of the car slowly, reluctantly. She pulled a business card from her purse and handed it to Ethan. My cell number's on here. Call me. Or text. Or anything. Madeline, please. Even if it's just to tell me this was a mistake. I need to know. He took the card. This isn't a mistake. No? No. But it's also not simple. Nothing worth having ever is. She smiled, brave, uncertain, hopeful. Goodbye, Ethan. Sophie. Bye. Sophie waved frantically. They watched her walk into the hotel, shoulders straight, head high. But just before she disappeared through the doors, she turned and looked back, waved, smiled. Then she was gone. Sophie chatted about the day the whole drive home, about Madeline's laugh, about how pretty she was, about how she wanted to show her everything next time. "Did you like her, Daddy?" "Yeah, baby, I did." "Good, me too." That night, after Sophie was in bed, Ethan sat at his kitchen table and stared at Madeline's business card. Madeline Sterling, CEO, Sterling Consulting Group. A New York address. A world away. His phone was in his hand before he could talk himself out of it. "Made it to your flight okay?" 3 minutes later, his phone buzzed. "Boarding now. Can't stop thinking about today. About you. About Sophie. Is that crazy? If it is, we're both crazy." "Good. I like the company." Ethan smiled, chest tight, with something that felt like hope and terror in equal measure. "Get home safe. Talk soon. Promise?" "Promise." He set down his phone and looked at Sophie's photo on the fridge, her gap-toothed grin, her yellow dress, her unshakable belief that everything would be okay as long as Daddy was there. "Take care of our girl," Claire had said, "and take care of yourself too. You're allowed to live." Maybe, Ethan thought, maybe it was time to try. The text came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, 3 days after Madeline's flight back to New York. "Can't sleep. Keep thinking about that faux place, about Ba telling me to call my mother. Did you know I actually did it?" Called her. "First real conversation we've had in 8 months." Ethan stared at his phone in the darkness of his bedroom, heart kicking against his ribs. He'd been lying awake anyway, replaying Sunday in his mind like a film he couldn't stop watching. "How'd it go?" The reply came immediately. "Hard. Good." She cried. I cried. "Apparently I've been disappearing into work just like Dad did." Her words, not mine. "Turns out everyone saw it except me. Sometimes we need outside eyes to see ourselves clearly." "Is that what you are? My outside eyes?" Ethan smiled in the dark. "I'm just a guy who drives people around and makes sure they eat real food occasionally. You're more than that. You know you are." He did know. Had known since Sunday, since watching Madeline push Sophie on the swings with her guard completely down, laughing like she'd forgotten how good it felt. But knowing something and admitting it were different countries, and Ethan had spent 3 years building walls specifically to keep himself from crossing that border. "How's Sophie?" Madeline asked. "Asleep." "Finally. She made me tell her 3 stories about you tonight. I'm running out of material. Tell her I miss her. Tell her yourself. She'd love to hear from you." A longer pause this time. Ethan could almost see Madeline chewing her lip, weighing risks, calculating odds. "Would that be okay? If I called sometime, talked to her?" "More than okay." "Tomorrow night? After her bedtime routine? She goes down at 8 Pacific. So 11 your time, I'll be awake. I'm always awake." They texted until 4 in the morning, about nothing, about everything. Madeline told him about her apartment in Manhattan, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Central Park, but felt more like a hotel than a home. Ethan told her about Sophie's latest obsession with butterflies, how she'd made him check 17 library books about metamorphosis. "She asked me if people can metamorphosis too," he typed. "If we can change into something completely different." "What did you tell her?" "That we can. But it takes longer than a cocoon, and it's scarier, and sometimes we need help. Do you believe that?" "I'm starting to." When Ethan finally fell asleep as dawn crept through his curtains, he dreamed of swimming pools and ice cream and a woman with gray-blue eyes who looked at him like he was something more than wreckage. The next evening, Sophie sat on the couch at 7:55, legs swinging, clutching Ethan's phone like it contained the secrets of the universe. "She's really going to call?" she asked for the 4th time. "She really is, baby. What if I don't know what to say?" "Then you listen. Madeline's good at talking." At exactly 8 o'clock, 11 p.m. in New York, the phone rang. Sophie's eyes went huge. She looked at Ethan, who nodded encouragingly. "Hello?" Sophie's voice came out small, nervous. Ethan couldn't hear Madeline's side of the conversation, but he watched Sophie's face transform, uncertainty melting into delight, shyness dissolving into her natural exuberance. I lost another tooth, see? Sophie held the phone up to her mouth, showing the new gap. The tooth fairy brought me $5. Daddy says that's because New York tooth fairies are rich. Sophie giggled at whatever Madeline said, then launched into a detailed explanation of butterfly metamorphosis, complete with hand gestures Madeline couldn't see but Sophie couldn't stop making. And then the caterpillar makes a chrysalis, not a cocoon, that's moths, totally different. And in seats that it basically turns into soup before it becomes a butterfly. Isn't that cool? It has to completely fall apart to become something new. Ethan's throat went tight. They talked for 20 minutes. Sophie showed Madeline her glow-in-the-dark stars via video call, introduced her to Mr. Whiskers, the stuffed cat, and explained her elaborate plan to build a butterfly garden in the spring. Okay, baby, Ethan said gently. Madeline has work tomorrow. Time to say goodnight. But Daddy, we can talk again soon, he heard Madeline say through the speaker. I promise. Okay. Good night, Madeline. I miss you. A pause. Then Madeline's voice, thick with emotion. I miss you too, sweetheart. So much. After Sophie reluctantly went to bed, Ethan took the phone to his bedroom. Hey, he said. Hey. Madeline's voice was rough. She's incredible, Ethan. Just incredible. She liked you from minute one. Kids have good instincts. Do they, or is she just starving for female attention? The question landed like a punch. Ethan sat on the edge of his bed, suddenly exhausted. Both, probably. She's got Mrs. Chen next door, and Ba, and her teachers. But a mother figure? No, I can't give her that. I wasn't criticizing. I know, but it's true anyway. He rubbed his face. I worry about that. About what she's missing. About whether I'm enough. You're more than enough. Anyone can see that. Can they? Because sometimes I feel like I'm barely holding it together, like one wrong move and everything falls apart. Madeline was quiet for a moment. You want to know something I've never told anyone? Sure. After my father died, I had a panic attack during a board meeting. Full-blown, can't breathe, thought I was dying panic attack. Locked myself in the bathroom for an hour. Her voice shook. Everyone thinks I just stepped up, took charge, handled it. Nobody knows I spent 6 months terrified every single day that I'd fail, that I'd destroy everything he built. What changed? Nothing. I'm still terrified. I just got better at hiding it. Ethan closed his eyes. We're a mess, aren't we? Completely, but at least we're honest about it. They talked until 1 in the morning. Madeline propped up in her too-big bed in Manhattan. Ethan lying in his small room in Seattle with Sophie's nightlight, casting yellow stars across the ceiling from the hallway. They talked about Claire, about the year after she died when Ethan couldn't figure out how to be both parents, about Madeline's father, about the weight of expectations and the impossibility of filling shoes that were never meant for you. Do you think they'd approve? Madeline asked quietly. Claire and my father, of this, whatever this is. Ethan thought about Claire's last words. You're allowed to live. Yeah, he said. I think they would. The calls became routine. Every night at 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern, Madeline would call Sophie. They'd talk about school, about butterflies, about nothing important and everything essential. Then after Sophie went to bed, Madeline and Ethan would talk for hours about their days, their fears, their slowly evolving understanding that what had started as a $950 job had become something neither of them knew how to name, but both were afraid to lose. 2 weeks after Madeline left Seattle, Ethan's phone rang at 3 in the afternoon. Unusual, unexpected. He was waiting outside Sophie's school, 5 minutes early, like always. Madeline? Everything okay? I'm coming back to Seattle. Her voice was tight, controlled. This weekend. I need to see you. Ethan's heart lurched. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's... She stopped. I have a meeting with a potential client on Friday, Boeing. They want to discuss a consulting contract. I fly in Thursday night, fly out Sunday morning. That's great, the Boeing contract, I mean. Ethan, she paused. I volunteered for it. Told my partner I needed to handle this one personally. He thought I was insane. I hate aerospace contracts. But it got me to Seattle, so I lied through my teeth about my expertise. You're flying across the country under false pretenses to see me? And Sophie, don't forget Sophie. That's insane. I know. Also kind of romantic. I was hoping you'd say that. He could hear the smile in her voice. Can I see you, both of you? I know it's last minute and you probably have plans. Madeleine, breathe. Yes, obviously, yes. Really? Really, Sophie's going to lose her mind. What about you? Ethan watched parents stream out of the school, collecting children, living their ordinary lives. I might have already lost mine. Good. I like the company. That night, when Ethan told Sophie that Madeleine was coming to visit, she actually screamed, a high-pitched squeal of joy that made Mrs. Chen knock on the wall they shared. Sorry, Ethan called. When? Sophie bounced on the couch like it was a trampoline. When? Thursday night. She has to work Friday, but she'll have time Saturday and Sunday morning. We have to clean everything and make the apartment pretty, and I need to finish my butterfly drawing. Sophie was already running to her room, leaving a trail of chaos behind her. Ethan sat on the couch, heart pounding, wondering what the hell he was doing. Madeleine Sterling was flying across the country to see him. She'd volunteered for a contract she didn't want, lied to her business partner, and rearranged her impossible schedule. For him. For them. His phone buzzed, a text from Madeleine. Second thoughts? Terrified thoughts. Me too. But I'm doing it anyway. Why? Because I can't stop thinking about you. Because Sophie talks about butterflies, and I think about metamorphosis and falling apart to become something new. Because for the first time in 2 years, I want something more than my father's approval. Ethan stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed, We're really doing this, aren't we? I think we are. Is that okay? He thought about Claire, about the promise he'd made, about Sophie's laughter and Madeleine's smile and the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, he was allowed to have this. Yeah, it's okay. Thursday arrived like Christmas and a root canal combined. Sophie changed outfits 4 times. Ethan cleaned the apartment until his hands smelled like lemon cleaner and regret. By 7 p.m., when they pulled up to the airport arrivals terminal, Sophie was vibrating with excitement and Ethan's palms were sweating. Madeleine emerged through the automatic doors carrying a small overnight bag and looking like she'd run the whole way from New York. Hair slightly mussed, coat wrinkled, eyes bright and nervous. Sophie launched herself out of the car before Ethan could stop her. Madeleine! Madeleine dropped her bag and caught Sophie in a hug that looked like relief made physical. Hey, sweetheart, I missed you. I missed you more. I drew you 17 butterflies. Well, 16 butterflies and one that might be a moth, but I'm not sure. I can't wait to see them. Ethan climbed out of the car, suddenly shy. Madeleine looked at him over Sophie's head, and the expression on her face, vulnerable, hopeful, scared, made his chest tight. Hi, she said. Hi yourself. This is crazy, right? Completely. But we're doing it anyway. Apparently. She smiled. That real smile, the one she'd worn at the park, and Ethan felt something click into place. Something that had been loose and rattling around in his chest for 3 years suddenly settled. They drove back to Ethan's apartment in Ballard, a modest 2-bedroom in a building that had seen better decades. Sophie chattered the whole way, showing Madeleine her school artwork, her library books, her treasure box of special rocks and feathers. This is us, Ethan said as they climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. It's not much. It's perfect, Madeleine said, and meant it. The apartment was small but clean, decorated with Sophie's artwork and Claire's photographs. A yellow couch that had seen better years. A kitchen table with mismatched chairs. Glow-in-the-dark stars on Sophie's ceiling, visible through the open bedroom door. Welcome to our world, Ethan said quietly. Madeleine set down her bag and looked around. Really looked, taking it all in. The stack of library books about butterflies, the photo of Ethan and Claire and baby Sophie on the mantel, the carefully organized chaos of a life built from scratch after everything fell apart. I love it, she said. Love it, Messias, she. Thank you for letting me in. Sophie grabbed Madeleine's hand. Come see my room. I have so much to show you. The next hour disappeared in butterfly drawings and bedtime negotiations. Sophie finally fell asleep at 9:30, clutching Mr. Whiskers, a smile on her face even in sleep. Ethan and Madeline stood in the doorway of Sophie's room, watching her breathe, not touching but close enough to feel each other's warmth. "She's going to be heartbroken when you leave," Ethan said quietly. "I know." "So am I." Madeline turned to look at him. "Then maybe I shouldn't leave." "Madeline, I'm not saying forever. I'm not saying move in. I'm just saying—" She gestured helplessly. "I don't know what I'm saying. I just know I don't want this to be temporary." They moved to the living room, settling on opposite ends of the yellow couch. Careful, cautious, like they were both afraid one wrong move would shatter whatever fragile thing they were building. "Tell me about the Boeing meeting," Ethan said, because it was safer than talking about feelings. "It's a disaster waiting to happen. They want me to assess their supply chain efficiency. I know nothing about aerospace supply chains." She laughed. "I'm going to get found out immediately. Or you're going to figure it out. You're brilliant, Madeline. You'll make it work." "You have a lot of faith in me." "Should I not?" She was quiet for a long moment. "My team thinks I'm losing my edge, taking too much time off, missing deadlines. I had to cancel 3 meetings to be here this weekend." "Do you regret it?" "Not even a little bit." She turned to face him fully. "That's what scares me. I've spent my entire adult life building this company, and now I'm blowing off meetings to fly across the country for a guy I've known for 3 weeks. When you put it that way, it does sound insane. But it doesn't feel insane, that's the thing. It feels like the first sane decision I've made in years." Ethan reached across the couch and took her hand. She gripped it like a lifeline. "I'm terrified," she admitted, "of this, of what it means, of how much I already care about you and Sophie." "You think I'm not terrified?" "Madeline, I've been alone for 3 years. I've gotten good at alone, safe in alone. And then you showed up in your expensive suit with your rules and your exhaustion, and suddenly alone feels like a prison instead of protection." "What are we doing, Ethan?" "I don't know, but I think we're doing it together." They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, watching the city lights through the window. Finally, Madeline spoke. "I need to tell you something about my schedule." "Okay." "I'm in Portland next week, San Francisco the week after. Then I have to be in New York for 2 weeks straight. Board meetings, client presentations, year-end planning." She gripped his hand tighter. "I can't promise regular visits. I can't promise anything except that I'll try." "That's all anyone can promise." "Is it enough?" Ethan thought about that. About phone calls at midnight and Sophie's face when Madeline walked through the door and the way his heart had started beating differently, faster, stronger, more alive. For now, yeah, it's enough. Madeline shifted closer on the couch, and suddenly they were inches apart instead of feet. Ethan could smell her perfume, something expensive and subtle. Could count the freckles on her nose that makeup usually covered. Could see the exact moment she decided to close the distance between them. The kiss was soft, tentative, questioning, like they were both asking permission and granting it simultaneously. When they pulled apart, Madeline's eyes were wet. "I didn't come to Seattle for a Boeing contract," she whispered. "I know. I came because I couldn't stand another night of just hearing your voice. I needed to see you. To know if this was real or just loneliness and late-night phone calls. And it's real." She kissed him again, firmer this time. Terrifyingly, impossibly real. They stayed up until 3 in the morning, talking and kissing and navigating the strange territory of two people who were too old to be reckless, but too lonely to be careful. When Madeline finally fell asleep on the couch, head on Ethan's shoulder, he stayed perfectly still, afraid to move, afraid to breathe, afraid to do anything that might shatter the moment. Friday morning arrived too early. Madeline left for her Boeing meeting at 7, wearing her armor, business suit, pulled back hair, professional mask firmly in place. But when she kissed Ethan goodbye at the door, the mask slipped. "Tonight?" she asked. "After Sophie's bedtime? I'm not going anywhere. Promise?" "Promise." The Boeing meeting went better than Madeline expected. She called during her lunch break to tell Ethan about it, voice bright with surprise and relief. They wanted her to come back in January, discuss a long-term contract. It meant more trips to Seattle, more reasons to return. "That's great," Ethan said, and meant it. Really great. "It's also terrifying. What if they actually hire me? What if I have to be here once a month? Would that be so bad? No, but it would be real, official, not just flying out on pretense, but actually having a reason. Madeline, you already have a reason. Silence. Then quietly, I do, don't I? That night, after Sophie was asleep, Madeline and Ethan sat on his tiny balcony, barely big enough for 2 chairs and a dying plant Ethan kept forgetting to water, and watched the Seattle rain that had finally arrived. Tell me about Claire, Madeline said suddenly. Ethan stiffened. Why? Because she's part of you, part of Sophie, and if I'm going to be in your lives, I need to understand. He was quiet for a long time, listening to rain patter against the metal railing. Finally, he spoke. She was a force of nature, loud, opinionated, passionate about everything. She wanted to save every kid who came through her ICU. Some nights she'd come home crying because she couldn't, but she'd go back the next day and try again. How did you meet? College. I was studying architecture. She was pre-med. We met at a party, spent the whole night arguing about whether buildings or people were more important. She won. She always won. Madeline smiled. I would have liked her. She would have liked you too. Would have told you to stop working so much and eat more. Would have probably tried to set you up with one of her single doctor friends. But not you. Ethan met her eyes. I wasn't single then. And you weren't you. What am I? Necessary, unexpected, terrifying. He reached for her hand. Everything I didn't know I needed. Madeline's eyes filled. I'm going to hurt you. Not on purpose, but I will. I'll choose work over plans. I'll miss calls. I'll cancel visits. Probably. And Sophie, what if I let her down? What if I can't be what she needs? You already are what she needs. You show up, you listen, you care. That's all anyone can ask. Is it enough? Madeline. Ethan pulled her chair closer until their knees touched. Stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to prove you deserve this. You're enough, exactly as you are. Messy, scared, impossibly busy. You're still enough. She kissed him then, desperate and grateful, and Ethan felt 3 years of loneliness start to crack open. Not breaking, transforming. Like a caterpillar in a chrysalis, falling apart to become something new. Saturday morning, Sophie woke them at 6 a.m. with a plan that involved the zoo, the aquarium, and approximately 7 hours of nonstop activity. Madeline, bleary-eyed and beautiful in borrowed sweatpants, agreed to everything. They went to the Woodland Park Zoo. Sophie dragged them from exhibit to exhibit, narrating animal facts with the confidence of a 7-year-old who'd read exactly 3 Wikipedia pages. Madeline listened with the same intensity she probably brought to board meetings, asking questions, remembering details. The monarch butterfly migrates 3,000 miles, Sophie announced at the butterfly exhibit. Can you imagine? That's like flying from here to New York. Madeline caught Ethan's eye. Yeah, I can imagine. They had lunch at the zoo's cafe, overpriced hot dogs and wilted fries that Sophie declared the best meal ever. Then the aquarium, where Sophie pressed her face against the glass of the giant tank and made friends with an octopus. I'm going to be a marine biologist, she declared, or a butterfly scientist, or maybe both. You can be anything you want, Madeline said seriously. Can I be your friend forever? Madeline's breath caught. I'd like that very much, sweetheart. By 5 p.m., Sophie was crashing hard, sugar and excitement and sensory overload finally catching up. They drove home in comfortable silence, Sophie dozing in her car seat, Madeline in front with her hand on Ethan's knee. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For today. For letting me be part of this. For not making it weird or complicated. Oh, it's definitely complicated. But not weird. Not weird. That evening, after Sophie finally went to bed, an hour later than usual, and only after extracting promises that Madeline would visit again soon, Ethan and Madeline stood in his small kitchen, suddenly awkward. I leave tomorrow, Madeline said. Morning flight, 7 a.m. I know. Which means I need to leave here by 5:30. I know. So this is it, our last night. For a while, anyway. Ethan stepped closer. Then let's not waste it talking about logistics. They didn't. They kissed in the kitchen, moved to the couch, talked and touched and mapped the geography of each other's loneliness. When Madeline finally admitted she should probably sleep, early flight, busy week ahead, neither of them moved. Stay, Ethan said quietly. Just tonight. Just sleep. I'll take the couch. Ethan, I want to wake up knowing you're here, even if it's just for a few hours. Madeline studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, but I'm not kicking you out of your own bed. We're adults. We can share. They lay in Ethan's small bed, fully clothed, careful not to touch too much, and talked until 2 a.m. About everything and nothing, about Claire and Madeline's father, and the weight of expectations, and the lightness of letting go. I need to tell you something, Madeline said into the darkness. Okay. I think I'm falling in love with you. Ethan's heart stopped, started again, beat differently than before. I know it's too soon, she continued quickly. I know we barely know each other. I know it's insane and impractical and probably doomed. But I needed you to know, before I leave, before this becomes real. Madeline, you don't have to say anything. I think I'm falling in love with you too. She turned in the darkness, finding his face with her hands. Really? Really? And you're right. It's insane and impractical, but it's also the most honest thing I've felt in 3 years. They kissed until the alarm went off at 5 a.m. Too early, too soon, not enough time. They dressed in silence, Madeline borrowing Ethan's sweatshirt because the morning was cold and she wasn't ready to put her armor back on yet. Sophie was still asleep when they left. Ethan had kissed her forehead, whispered that he'd be back soon, and prayed she wouldn't wake up heartbroken. The drive to the airport felt both endless and too short. They didn't talk much. What was there to say that hadn't been said in the darkness of his bedroom, in whispered confessions and careful kisses? At the departure's curb, Madeline gripped his hand. I'll call tonight, after my meetings. We'll be waiting. Tell Sophie I'm sorry I didn't say goodbye. Tell her, her voice broke. Tell her I'll be back as soon as I can. She knows, we both know. Madeline kissed him, urgent, desperate, already grieving, and then she was gone, swallowed by the automatic doors and the press of travelers and the relentless forward motion of a life that demanded she keep moving. Ethan sat in his car for a long time, watching planes take off, carrying people away to lives that continued spinning even when your own felt like it had stopped. His phone buzzed. A text from Madeline. Gate. Boarding soon. Already miss you. Miss you too. Fly safe. Ethan? Yeah? This is real. Us. Even when it's hard, even when it's complicated, it's real. I know. I'll be here when you're ready to come back. Promise? Promise. He drove home as the sun rose, painting Seattle in shades of gold and hope. Sophie was awake when he walked in, sitting at the kitchen table with tears streaming down her face. She left, Sophie whispered. Madeline left. Ethan knelt in front of his daughter, gathering her into his arms. She had to, baby. She has a job in New York, people counting on her. But she's coming back, right? She promised. She promised. Do you believe her? Ethan thought about Madeline's face in the darkness, her confession, her fear and hope tangled together like vines. Yeah, baby, I believe her. Sophie cried for a few more minutes, the big gulping sobs of a child learning that love sometimes means letting go. And then she wiped her eyes and looked at Ethan with frightening wisdom. Do you love her, Daddy? The question hung in the air, honest, impossible to dodge. Yeah, Ethan admitted. I think I do. Good. Sophie nodded, satisfied. Because she loves us too. I can tell. How can you tell? She looks at us the way you look at Mama's picture, like we're precious. Ethan's throat closed. He pulled Sophie closer, breathing in her shampoo and innocence, and that unique Sophie smell that meant safety. You're very smart, you know that? Mama always said I got her brains and your heart. She was right. They made pancakes for breakfast, Sophie's favorite, chocolate chip with too much syrup. They called Mrs. Chen and invited her over. They read library books about butterflies and talked about metamorphosis and how sometimes falling apart was necessary to become something new. And that night, at 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern, Madeline called. She talked to Sophie first about the plane ride, about the butterfly drawing Sophie had given her, about how much she missed them already. Then, after Sophie reluctantly handed over the phone, she talked to Ethan. "I'm in my apartment," she said quietly, "looking at the city. It's never felt emptier." "Come back." "I will." January. The Boeing contract, 6 days, maybe 7. That's 7 weeks away. I know, but I'll call every night, and text, and maybe video calls on weekends. It's not the same. No, but it's what we have right now. She paused. Unless you want to call this off, tell me it's too hard, too complicated. I would understand. Madeline, I'm serious. I don't want to be the thing that breaks your heart, or Sophie's. Ethan looked at Sophie, already in her pajamas, drawing another butterfly with fierce concentration. You're not breaking anything. You're building something. With us. And yeah, it's complicated and scary and probably ridiculous, but I want it anyway. Yeah, so stop giving me outs. I'm in this, all the way. He heard her breath catch. Okay, I'm in too. They talked until midnight, longer than they should have, later than was wise. But neither of them wanted to be the first to hang up, the first to admit that distance was real and hard and unavoidable. Finally, reluctantly, Madeline yawned. I have a 7 a.m. meeting. I should sleep. Okay. Good night, Madeline. Good night, Ethan. Thank you. For what? For catching me when I fell. After they hung up, Ethan sat in the darkness of his living room, thinking about metamorphosis and falling apart, and the terrifying beauty of becoming something new. His phone buzzed one more time. I love you. I know it's too soon, but I do. Ethan smiled, chest tight with emotion too big for words. I love you too. Sleep well. You too. Dream of butterflies. I'll dream of you. And he did. November arrived with frost and doubt. 7 weeks stretched ahead like a canyon too wide to cross, and Ethan felt every day of it. The nightly calls helped, Sophie chattering about school while Madeline listened with the focus she probably brought to million-dollar negotiations. Then Ethan and Madeline talking until one or both of them couldn't keep their eyes open. But phone calls couldn't fill the space at his table where she'd sat, couldn't replicate the weight of her head on his shoulder, couldn't make the apartment feel less empty. 3 weeks in, reality started to bite. Madeline missed a call, client emergency in San Francisco that ran until 2 in the morning. Sophie cried herself to sleep. The next night, Madeline called at 7 instead of 8, catching them at dinner, and the rhythm felt wrong, fractured. I'm sorry, Madeline said for the third time. Yesterday was a disaster. The client threatened to walk, and I had to... It's fine, Ethan interrupted, but his voice was tight. We understand. Ethan, talk to me. Not now, Sophie's listening. After Sophie went to bed, later than usual, clingy and uncertain, Madeline called back. Okay, now talk to me. Ethan sat on his balcony in the November cold, watching his breath fog in the air. This is harder than I thought it would be. I know. Sophie asked me today if you were real or if she dreamed you, 7 years old, and she's already doubting what's right in front of her face because it's too good to be true. What did you tell her? That you're real, that you love us, that distance doesn't change that. He paused. But Madeline, I'm starting to wonder if I'm lying to her. Silence. Then quietly. Are you breaking up with me? No. Maybe. I don't know. Ethan rubbed his face. I'm scared. Scared that we're building Sophie up for a fall. Scared that you're going to wake up one day and realize this doesn't fit into your life. Scared that I'm being selfish, letting her love you when I can't promise you'll stay. I'm not going anywhere. You already did. You left, and you'll keep leaving because that's what your life requires. And maybe that's okay for us. We're adults. We signed up for complicated. But Sophie? She didn't sign up for this. She just fell in love with you because you pushed her on the swings and listened to her butterfly facts like they mattered. They do matter. She matters. You both matter more than anything. Then prove it. The words came out harsher than he intended. Because right now, you're a voice on a phone and a memory that's getting hazier every day. He heard Madeline's breath hitch. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. Another pause, longer this time. When Madeline spoke again, her voice shook. I have 18 meetings this week, a board presentation on Friday, a client crisis in Portland that needs my physical presence. My partner is furious that I'm distracted. My assistant quit because I snapped at her during a call. I'm sleeping 4 hours a night and forgetting to eat, and I know, I'm failing you both. But I don't know how to fix it. Ethan's anger deflated. I'm not asking you to fix everything. I'm just asking for, something more than this. What if I can't give you more right now? The question hung between them like smoke. Ethan thought about Claire, about how she used to work 60-hour weeks at the hospital and still make it to every one of Sophie's milestones. Exhausted, running on fumes, but present, always present. Then maybe we need to talk about what we're actually doing here, he said quietly. Because I can't keep explaining to my daughter why the woman she loves is too busy to show up. Ethan, please, I need to go. Sophie's calling. Wait. But he hung up, heart pounding, immediately regretting it. His phone buzzed 30 seconds later. A text. I'm sorry. You're right. I'll do better. Then another. I love you, both of you. That's not nothing. Ethan stared at the messages for a long time before typing back. I know, I love you too. I'm just scared. Me too, but we're worth being scared for. He wanted to believe her. He did believe her, but belief didn't make the next 4 weeks any shorter, didn't make the empty space at his table any less noticeable, didn't stop Sophie from asking every single day when Madeline was coming back. The low point came on Thanksgiving. They'd made plans. Madeline was supposed to fly in Wednesday night, spend the holiday with them, fly back Friday. Mrs. Chen had loaned them extra chairs. Sophie had made place cards with painstaking 7-year-old precision. Ethan had bought a turkey that was probably too big, but he wanted everything perfect. Tuesday night, Madeline called. Ethan knew before she said a word. Don't, he said. Please don't. Ethan, I'm so sorry. The Portland client, they moved up the deadline. If I don't present on Thursday, we lose a $3 million contract. So come Friday. We can do Thanksgiving Friday. I can't. I have to be in New York Friday morning. Board meeting that's been scheduled for months. Ethan closed his eyes. So you're not coming at all? I'll make it up to you. Christmas, I promise. I'll take the whole week off. I'll stop. His voice came out flat. Just stop making promises you can't keep. That's not fair. You know how important this contract is? $3 million, Ethan. That's not pocket change. And we're what? Convenient when your schedule allows? You know that's not true. Do I? Because from where I'm sitting, you've chosen work over us 3 times in the last month. Missed calls, canceled plans, and now this. I have responsibilities. People depending on me. I can't just abandon. What about us? Don't we depend on you too? Ethan's voice rose. Or are we just the thing that makes you feel good when the real life gets too hard? How dare you? Madeline's voice went cold. I have been killing myself trying to balance everything, working twice as hard so I can create space for visits, taking red eyes and missing sleep and rearranging my entire life, and you're acting like I'm doing this on purpose. Aren't you? Choosing the safe thing, work, over the scary thing, us? That's not... She stopped. I can't do this right now. I have a presentation to finish. Of course you do. What's that supposed to mean? It means there's always something more important, always. And Sophie and I are starting to realize where we rank. Silence. Then quietly, if that's what you really think, maybe we should take a break. The words landed like a punch. A break. Until I can figure out how to do this better. Until things calm down at work. Until you can fit us into your schedule? Until we're convenient? Ethan laughed bitterly. You know what? Fine. Take your break. Take all the time you need. Ethan, I have to go tell my daughter that the woman she loves isn't coming for Thanksgiving again. He hung up. This time, she didn't call back. Sophie took the news better than he expected, which was to say, she went quiet. Didn't cry, didn't throw a tantrum, just nodded and went back to coloring. But that night, Ethan found her place cards in the trash, torn into tiny pieces. "Baby," he said, kneeling beside her bed, "we can still have a nice Thanksgiving, just us, like old times." "I don't want old times." Sophie's voice was small. "I want Madeline." "I know, me too." "Did we do something wrong? Is that why she's not coming?" "No, baby, no. She just has work, important work." "More important than us?" Ethan didn't have an answer for that. They spent Thanksgiving at Mrs. Chen's apartment with 6 other neighbors who had nowhere else to go. The food was good. The company was kind. Sophie smiled and played with Mrs. Chen's grandkids who were visiting. But Ethan saw the way she kept checking his phone, hope flickering across her face every time it buzzed. Madeline didn't call, didn't text, nothing. By Friday, Ethan was equal parts furious and heartbroken. He threw himself into normalcy, park time, library books, helping Sophie with homework. They went to Pho Than Do, and Ba took one look at his face and made him her special soup without asking. "Where is your pretty friend?" she asked, setting down the bowl. "New York." "Ah," Ba nodded knowingly. "Too busy for soup?" "Too busy for a lot of things." "You fight?" "Something like that." Ba patted his shoulder. "Love is hard, distance is harder, but good soup helps everything." Ethan almost smiled. "I don't think soup can fix this." "You'd be surprised what soup can fix. Eat." That night, after Sophie was asleep, Ethan finally allowed himself to fall apart. He sat on his balcony in the freezing November air and let himself feel everything he'd been pushing down: anger, grief, betrayal, loss. Not just losing Madeline, but losing the version of himself that had started to believe happiness was possible again. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Marcus, Ms. Sterling's assistant. She asked me to let you know she's okay. Working, not ignoring you on purpose. She wanted you to know." Ethan stared at the message. She couldn't even text him herself? Had to send her assistant? He typed back, "Tell Miss Sterling thank you for the update. We're fine." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "For what it's worth, she's a mess. Haven't seen her like this ever. Whatever happened between you two, she cares. A lot." Ethan wanted to throw his phone off the balcony. Instead, he typed, "Caring isn't enough." No response. He hadn't expected one. December arrived with snow and silence. Sophie stopped asking about Madeline after the first week. Ethan stopped checking his phone every 5 minutes after the second. By week 3, it almost felt like the whole thing had been a dream. A beautiful, painful, completely impractical dream. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon while Ethan waited outside Sophie's school, his phone rang. Not Madeline. Her business partner, someone named Richard, whose voice carried the weight of expensive education and inherited wealth. "Mr. Brooks?" "Richard Chen, Sterling Consulting. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "Depends on why you're calling." "I wanted to apologize for Madeline, for Thanksgiving, for..." He sighed. "She's been impossible since then. Snapping at everyone, missing meetings, making uncharacteristic mistakes. Yesterday, she almost cost us a client because she wasn't paying attention." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've known Madeline for 15 years, since business school, and I've never seen her like this. Whatever happened between you two, it's destroying her." Ethan's chest tightened. She made her choice. Did she, or did she panic? Richard paused. "Look, I don't know you, don't know what you mean to her, but I know Madeline. She's brilliant, driven, and absolutely terrified of needing anyone. Her father was the same way. Worked himself to death trying to prove he didn't need help, didn't need support, could do everything alone. Madeline watched him die from that stubbornness, and now she's following the exact same path." "What do you want me to do about it?" "I don't know, maybe nothing. Maybe I'm overstepping. But she has a contract negotiation in Seattle next week. Boeing. She's been avoiding it, trying to send someone else. I told her if she doesn't go, she's fired." "You can't fire her. She owns half the company. Technically true, but I can make her life hell until she does what she needs to do. Richard's voice softened. She needs to face this, Mr. Brooks. Face you. Face whatever she's running from. And she won't do it unless someone forces her hand. After Richard hung up, Ethan sat in his car, mind spinning. Sophie emerged from school, chattering about a science project, oblivious to her father's inner turmoil. That night, he called Mrs. Chen. I need a favor, big one. Anything, dear? Can you watch Sophie next week? Maybe a couple days? I might need to. I don't know what I need to do yet, but I need options. Of course, she can stay here. We'll make dumplings, watch movies, spoil her rotten. Thank you. After Sophie was asleep, Ethan pulled out his laptop and did something he'd been avoiding. He looked up Madeline Sterling. Really looked. Articles, interviews, profiles. There she was, staring back from a Forbes feature. The woman restructuring corporate America. Sharp, confident, untouchable. Sterling doesn't believe in work-life balance, the article quoted her saying. Balance implies equal weight. My work gets 90%. Personal life gets whatever's left. That's how you succeed. Ethan closed the laptop, stomach churning. Had he been fooling himself, thinking he could be more than whatever's left? His phone buzzed. Finally, after 3 weeks of silence, a text from Madeline. I'm coming to Seattle next week, Boeing contract. I understand if you don't want to see me, but I needed you to know. Ethan stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed, when? Wednesday. Meetings Thursday and Friday, flying back Saturday. We should talk. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I'd like that. If you're willing, Thursday night, 8 p.m., I'll pick you up from your hotel. Okay. And Madeline? Yes? Don't make promises you can't keep this time. I won't. The week crawled by. Sophie sensed something was different. Ethan was distracted, quieter than usual. Wednesday evening, as he packed her overnight bag for Mrs. Chen's place, she finally asked, Is Madeline coming back? Ethan zipped the bag slowly. Yeah, baby. She's here for work. Are you going to see her? Tomorrow night. Sophie studied his face with frightening perception. Are you still mad at her? I don't know what I am. Do you still love her? The question was so direct, so Sophie, that Ethan almost laughed. Yeah, I do. Then you should tell her. Mama always said you can't fix things if you don't talk about them. When did you get so wise? I'm 7 3/4. That's almost 8. Thursday arrived cold and clear. Ethan worked his regular driving jobs, a tech exec to the airport, a couple to a restaurant downtown, an elderly woman to a doctor's appointment. Normal life, continuing despite the fact that his heart felt like it might crack open. At 7:30, he pulled up to the Fairmont, the same hotel where he'd picked up Madeline 3 months ago. It felt like a lifetime, like a different person had stood in this exact spot, nervous about a $950 job, with no idea his entire world was about to shift. At exactly 8 p.m., Madeline emerged from the lobby. She looked thinner, more exhausted than he'd ever seen her. Hair pulled back so tight it had to hurt. Suit immaculate, but somehow ill-fitting, like she'd lost weight and hadn't bothered to adjust her wardrobe. She climbed into the passenger seat, front, not back, one small intimacy they'd earned, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Hi, she finally said. Hi. You look good. You look tired. I am tired. She turned to face him fully. I'm exhausted. I'm miserable. And I'm sorry. Sorry for what specifically? For Thanksgiving, for choosing work, for taking a break when what I should have done was fight for us. Her voice shook. For being a coward. Ethan pulled into traffic, needing something to do with his hands. Where do you want to go? Anywhere. Nowhere. I don't care as long as we can talk. He drove to Golden Gardens Park, nearly empty on a December evening. They walked along the beach, feet crunching on sand mixed with frost, the city lights reflecting off the dark water of the Puget Sound. Richard called me, Ethan said. Told me you've been a mess. Madeline laughed bitterly. Richard needs to learn boundaries. He said you're following your father's path, working yourself to death to prove you don't need anyone. maybe I am. Why? She stopped walking, staring out at the water. Because needing people is terrifying. Because everyone I've ever needed has left. My father died. My mother emotionally checked out years before that. The one serious boyfriend I had left me because I was too focused on work. And I told myself it was fine. That I didn't need a partner, didn't need family, didn't need anything except my company and my goals. And then I met you. She turned to face him, eyes bright with unshed tears. And suddenly I wanted everything I'd convinced myself I didn't need. You, Sophie, a life that wasn't just meetings and contracts, and it terrified me. Because what if I wasn't good enough? What if I failed at being a partner, a mother figure, a person who could balance everything? So you sabotaged it. So I sabotaged it, she agreed. Chose work over Thanksgiving because work is safe. Work I know how to do. But loving you, loving Sophie, being vulnerable and present and necessary to someone else's happiness? I don't know how to do that. Ethan shoved his hands in his pockets against the cold. You were doing fine. Until you got scared. I was doing terribly. Missing calls, canceling visits, constantly choosing my company over you. And the worst part? I knew I was doing it. Knew I was hurting you both. But I couldn't stop. Why not? Because stopping meant admitting this was real, that you weren't just a beautiful interlude, but something permanent, something that would require me to change my entire life. She wiped her eyes. Do you know what I did after our fight? After you hung up on me? What? I worked until 4 a.m, answered every email, completed every task, made myself indispensable to 6 different clients, anything to avoid thinking about what I'd just lost. She laughed, hollow and broken. And the next day, Richard found me asleep at my desk and asked me what the hell I was doing, and I couldn't answer him because I didn't know. They walked in silence for a while, the cold seeping through their coats, turning their breath to fog. Finally, Ethan spoke. I can't do this halfway, Madeline. I can't be the thing you fit in between meetings. Sophie can't be the person you love when it's convenient. We need more than that. I know. Do you? Because you keep saying you know, but your actions say something different. Madeline stopped walking. Then let me show you instead of tell you. How? She pulled out her phone, fingers shaking from cold or nerves or both. After a moment, she turned the screen toward him. An email sent that morning. To Richard Chen. From Madeline Sterling. Restructuring proposal. Richard, I'm stepping down as CEO. Effective January 1st. You've earned it. You've been covering for my failures for months. It's time to make it official. I'll stay on as a senior consultant, work remotely, take only the clients I want. No more 60-hour weeks. No more cross-country flights every week. No more choosing work over life. It's time to find out who I am when I'm not my father's daughter. Ethan stared at the email, then at Madeline. You're serious? Completely. Richard's response is on the next page. He said it's about damn time and also that I'm still required to attend quarterly board meetings. But your company, your father's legacy, will survive without me running it into the ground trying to prove I'm worthy of his memory. She took Ethan's hands. I've been thinking about what you said, about Sophie asking if you were real, and I realized I've been treating this like a fantasy too. Something beautiful but impossible. But it's not impossible. I just have to choose it. What about New York, your apartment, your life there? I haven't lived in that apartment in any real sense for 2 years. It's a hotel I pay mortgage on. She squeezed his hands. But Seattle. Seattle has you, and Sophie, and Boz Soup, and a life I actually want to be part of. Ethan's heart was hammering. You're moving here? If you'll have me. Not immediately. I need to wrap things up in New York, find a place here, figure out the logistics. But yeah, I'm moving here. That's insane. I know. You're giving up everything. I'm giving up nothing that matters and gaining everything that does. Ethan pulled her close, buried his face in her hair that smelled like her expensive shampoo and airplanes and 3 months of missing her. This is really happening. If you want it, if you're willing to give me another chance. What about work? You'll resent me eventually, resent giving everything up. I'm not giving it up. I'm reshaping it. Remote consulting, flexible schedule, choosing quality clients over quantity. She pulled back to look at him. I'll still work, still be ambitious, but I'll also be present. For you, for Sophie, for us. And if it doesn't work? If you get here and realize you hate Seattle rain and miss New York, and she kissed him, firm, decisive, shutting down his spiral. Then we'll figure it out, together, like people who love each other do. I'm still scared. Me too. But I'm more scared of living the rest of my life wondering what could have been if I'd been brave enough to try. They stood on the beach as the wind picked up, holding each other against the cold and the fear and the impossible hope that maybe, just maybe, this could actually work. When? Ethan asked. When would you move? February, maybe March. I need to train Richard properly, hand off my clients, pack up my life. Is that too long? It's long enough to make sure, to know you're not making a mistake. I'm not, but I understand if you need the time to believe that. They walked back to the car, hands linked, and Ethan felt something shift. Not fixed, nothing was fixed yet, but possible. Like a door that had been slammed shut was creaking open again. I should tell you something, he said as they climbed into the car. Sophie stopped asking about you after the second week. Stopped talking about you at all, actually. She's protecting herself. Madeline's face crumpled. I know. I did that. If you're serious about this, about us, you need to prove it to her, not me. Her. How? Show up, consistently, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He started the engine. And maybe start now. She's at Mrs. Chen's place. We could stop by if you want. It's 9:30. She's probably asleep. Probably. But maybe seeing you when she wakes up tomorrow morning would mean something. Madeline wiped her eyes. You'd let me do that? After everything? I'm not letting you do anything. I'm giving you the chance to show up. What you do with it is up to you. They drove to Mrs. Chen's apartment in silence. When they arrived, Mrs. Chen opened the door in her bathrobe, took one look at Madeline's tear-stained face, and pulled her into a hug without a word. She's asleep, Mrs. Chen whispered. But you can see her if you're quiet. Madeline followed Ethan to the guest bedroom where Sophie was curled up with Mr. Whiskers, one hand tucked under her cheek. Madeline knelt beside the bed, watching her breathe, and something in her face broke and reformed all at once. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Sophie stirred, eyes opening slowly. For a moment, she just stared, like she was seeing a ghost, something impossible made real. Then her face crumpled and she launched herself at Madeline, nearly knocking her over. You came back, Sophie sobbed into Madeline's shoulder. I thought you forgot about us. Never. I could never forget about you. Madeline held her tight, rocking slightly. I'm sorry I wasn't here for Thanksgiving. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm going to do better. I promise. Don't promise if you can't keep it, Sophie said, echoing Ethan's words. Then I won't promise. I'll just show you, every day, starting now. Sophie pulled back, wiping her eyes. Are you staying? For real this time? Madeline looked at Ethan, who nodded. I'm moving here, to Seattle. It's going to take a couple of months, but yeah, I'm staying. Really? Really? Sophie threw her arms around Madeline again, and Ethan watched them, his daughter and the woman he loved clinging to each other like lifelines, and felt hope bloom in his chest for the first time in 3 weeks. They stayed until Sophie fell back asleep, this time with a smile on her face. Madeline didn't want to leave, kept finding excuses to stay just a few more minutes, until finally Ethan gently pulled her away. Outside in the hall, Madeline leaned against the wall and slid down to sit on the floor. I can't believe how close I came to losing that. Ethan sat beside her. But you didn't. Only because you let me back in. Why? After how badly I screwed up? Because I love you, and because everyone deserves a second chance to get it right. I won't mess this up again. You might, probably will, honestly, but that's okay as long as you keep showing up to fix it. They sat in Mrs. Chen's hallway until midnight, making plans and promises and slowly rebuilding what fear had nearly destroyed. And when Ethan finally drove Madeline back to her hotel, he kissed her goodnight with the certainty that this time, they were going to make it work. The morning after their reconciliation, Ethan woke to 17 text messages from Madeline. They'd started at 3 a.m. New York time. Apparently, she'd flown back on a red-eye after her Friday meetings and chronicled her inability to sleep, her racing thoughts, her desperate need to make sure the previous night had been real and not some exhaustion-induced hallucination. I'm really doing this, right? Moving to Seattle? Restructuring my entire life? Please tell me I didn't dream that conversation on the beach. Sophie hugged me. She actually hugged me. I can still feel it. Is it insane that I'm already looking at apartments online? Found one in Ballard, 2 bedrooms. Walking distance from your place. Too soon to mention? Probably too soon. Deleting that message from my brain, except I already sent it, so never mind. I should let you sleep. Sorry for the novel. Not sorry. I'm happy. Terrifyingly happy. Okay, now I'll let you sleep. One more thing. I love you. Okay, that's really it. Sophie, too. Tell her I love her. Now I'm done. Maybe. The last message had come at 6 a.m. Pacific just an hour ago. Call me when you wake up? Please? Ethan smiled, chest warm despite the December cold seeping through his bedroom window. He called immediately. Madeline answered on the first ring, breathless. Hi, you're awake. I didn't wake you, did I? The texts were supposed to be for later, when you actually woke up naturally, but I kept thinking of things and... Madeline, breathe. She laughed, shaky and genuine. I'm nervous. Is that stupid? We already did the hard part. We already said everything. But now it's morning and real, and I'm terrified I'm going to mess it up again. You're not going to mess it up. How do you know? Because you're already thinking about it, already worried. The Madeline who messed up wouldn't have sent 17 text messages at 3 in the morning. She would have just assumed everything was fine and gone back to work. 17? Oh no, that's excessive, isn't it? It's perfect. Silence, then quietly, I looked at 12 apartments last night, made a spreadsheet comparing neighborhoods, commute times, school districts. Then I realized I was planning my life around Sophie's school district, and I just sat there, staring at my computer, realizing this is real. Having second thoughts? Not even one. More like first thoughts? I've never done this before. Never planned my life around other people. Never wanted to. Her voice softened. It's scary and wonderful, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Welcome to parenting. That feeling never goes away. Great, comforting. Ethan climbed out of bed, padding to the kitchen to start coffee. When are you coming back? To Seattle, I mean. I'm in New York now. Have to be here for the next 3 weeks. Year-end closings, client handoffs, training. Richard to actually run things without me undermining him. She paused. But I was thinking, Christmas week? I could take the whole week off. Spend it with you and Sophie, if that's okay. More than okay. Sophie will lose her mind. In a good way? The best way. They talked for another hour. Madeline from her 2 empty Manhattan apartment. Ethan making breakfast in his small kitchen. Normal conversation, domestic and easy, about nothing important. It felt like practice for a future they were both still learning to believe in. I should go, Madeline finally said. Richard wants to have lunch, probably to make sure I'm not having a breakdown. Are you? Maybe? But like a good breakdown, the kind where you realize you've been doing everything wrong and it's terrifying but also freeing. Those are the best kind. After they hung up, Ethan went to collect Sophie from Mrs. Chen's apartment. She was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a half-eaten bowl of congee, drawing another butterfly with fierce concentration. Daddy! She launched herself at him. Madeline was here last night. I didn't dream it, right? You didn't dream it, baby. Is she coming back? Really coming back? Ethan knelt to Sophie's level. She's moving here, to Seattle. It's going to take a few months, but yeah, she's really coming back. Sophie's eyes went wide. To live here? Forever? Well, not in our apartment. She'll have her own place, but close by. Close enough to see all the time. Can she come for Christmas? She's planning on it. Sophie threw her arms around Ethan's neck, squeezing so tight he could barely breathe. I knew it. I knew she'd come back. I told Mr. Whiskers and he didn't believe me, but I knew. Mrs. Chen watched from the stove, smiling. That girl is good for you, both of you. Don't let her get away again. I don't plan to. The 3 weeks until Christmas crawled by like molasses in January, but this time the waiting felt different. Not like absence, but like anticipation. Madeline called every night, earlier now, at 7 instead of 8, so she could talk to Sophie before bedtime and still have hours with Ethan afterward. She sent pictures of her apartment hunting progress, asked Sophie's opinion on paint colors, consulted Ethan about neighborhoods and commute times. "There's one in Fremont," she said during a video call. 2 bedrooms, updated kitchen, and it has this little balcony that overlooks the canal, but it's further from your place, 20 minutes instead of 10. "Get the place you love," Ethan said. "We'll make the distance work." "But what if Sophie needs something and I'm 20 minutes away instead of 10? "Then you'll get there in 20 minutes instead of 10. Madeline, you're allowed to have a place you actually like. I like being close to you more." Sophie, listening from her pillow fort in the living room, piped up. "Get the one with the balcony. You can see boats from balconies. Boats are cool." Madeline laughed. "Boats are cool. Okay, balcony apartment it is." She signed the lease 2 days later, a virtual signing that required her to FaceTime Ethan so he could watch her shaking hands as she signed away her New York security deposit for a Seattle future she was still learning to trust. "It's real now," she whispered, staring at the signed documents. "It was real before. But now it's official. I have a Seattle address, a place to live, a home." "Not quite a home yet. That takes time. Will you help me? Make it feel like home?" Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I don't know how to do this. My New York apartment is just furniture and artwork and nothing that matters. I want this one to be different. We'll figure it out together." Sophie poked her head into frame. "Can I help pick curtains? I'm really good at curtains." "You've never picked curtains in your life," Ethan said. "But I would be good at it. I have vision." Madeline was laughing now, the tears spilling over. "I would love your help with curtains, Sophie. And maybe a butterfly garden on the balcony. For spring? Absolutely, a butterfly garden." December 23rd arrived cold and bright. Ethan and Sophie left for the airport at 4 p.m., Sophie bouncing in her car seat like she'd forgotten how to sit still. She dressed herself in her yellow dress, the one Claire had bought, the one she'd hemmed twice, the one that meant something, and insisted on bringing Mr. Whiskers for moral support. "What if she changed her mind?" Sophie asked as they parked. "What if she's not on the plane?" "She'll be there." "But what if Sophie, breathe. She'll be there." They waited at arrivals, Sophie clutching Ethan's hand, eyes locked on the automatic doors. Every person who emerged made her tense with hope, then deflate with disappointment. 10 minutes passed. 15. "Maybe her flight was delayed," Sophie whispered. Then the doors opened and Madeline walked through. Not in her business suit, but in jeans and a sweater, hair loose around her shoulders, carrying a small suitcase and the biggest smile Ethan had ever seen. Sophie screamed, actually screamed, and ran. Madeline dropped her suitcase and caught her, spinning her around, both of them laughing and crying simultaneously. "You came!" Sophie sobbed into Madeline's shoulder. "You really came!" "I promised, didn't I?" "You're staying the whole week?" "The whole week. And then I'm coming back in February. And then I'm never leaving again." Ethan watched them, heart so full it hurt. When Madeline finally set Sophie down and looked at him, her eyes said everything her mouth couldn't form into words. He closed the distance between them and kissed her, soft, careful, aware of Sophie watching but unable to stop himself. Madeline kissed him back, one hand tangling in his hair, the other still holding Sophie's small fingers. "Welcome home," Ethan whispered against her lips. "I'm not home yet. Still have to move, remember?" "You're home enough." They drove back to Ballard through light December snow, Sophie chattering about all her Christmas plans. They'd made cookies, 73 of them, various shapes and sizes, most slightly burned. They'd picked out a tree, small, Charlie Brown-esque, but Sophie had insisted it was perfect. They'd wrapped presents. Sophie's wrapping job looked like a tornado had hit a paper factory, but she was proud. "And we got you a present," Sophie announced, "but you can't open it until Christmas. Those are the rules." "I got you presents too," Madeline said, "but same rules." "Did you get Daddy a present?" "I did." Sophie grinned. "Is it mushy?" Adult presents are always mushy. Maybe a little mushy. Gross, but okay. The apartment looked different with Madeline in it. Smaller, warmer, more complete. She set down her suitcase and just stood in the living room, taking it all in. The Charlie Brown tree with its crooked star. The 73 cookies arranged on every available surface. Sophie's artwork covering the refrigerator. The photo of Claire still on the mantel, smiling her eternal smile. It's perfect, Madeline said quietly. It's chaos, Ethan corrected. Perfectly chaotic, the best kind. That night, after Sophie finally went to bed, an hour later than usual because she kept finding excuses to come back out and check that Madeline was still there, Ethan and Madeline sat on the couch with mugs of tea, not quite touching but close enough to feel each other's warmth. I have something to tell you, Madeline said. About work. Ethan's stomach dropped. You're not stepping down. No, I'm still stepping down, but Richard and I worked out a different arrangement. She turned to face him. I'm keeping 3 clients, just 3. All remote work except for quarterly in-person meetings. It's about 20 hours a week instead of 80. And you're okay with that? I'm terrified of it. What if I'm not enough with just 20 hours? What if I'm only valuable when I'm indispensable? She set down her tea with shaking hands. But I'm also excited. For the first time in my life, I'll have time for you, for Sophie, for figuring out who I am when I'm not working. What if you hate it? Then I'll adjust, add more clients, find a balance that works. She took his hand, but I have to try. I can't keep living like my father did, working until there's nothing left. Ethan squeezed her hand. Your father would be proud of you for choosing differently. Would he? Or would he think I'm weak for giving up? He'd think you're brave for choosing life. Madeline leaned against him, head on his shoulder. I called my mother yesterday, told her about the move, about you and Sophie, about everything. How'd that go? She cried, said she thought she'd lost me the same way she lost my father. To work, to ambition, to the belief that nothing matters except legacy. Madeline's voice shook. She asked if she could meet you, both of you. Maybe come visit in the spring. Of course she can. Really? You'd be okay with that? Madeline, she's your mother. Of course I'd be okay with it. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the snow fall past the window, the city lights reflecting off the white streets. Finally, Madeline spoke again. Can I ask you something? About Claire? Ethan tensed slightly. Sure. Does it bother you that I'm here, that we're doing this? What do you mean? I mean, I'm sitting in the home you built with her daughter, looking at her picture on the mantel. Am I intruding on something I shouldn't be? Ethan was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. The first year after Claire died, I couldn't look at her pictures, covered them all up because it hurt too much. Sophie would sneak into my room and uncover them when I wasn't looking, like she was afraid I'd forget. Did you want to forget? Sometimes, but mostly I just wanted the pain to stop. He took a breath. About 6 months in, Sophie asked me if Mama would be mad that we were laughing again. She'd made a joke, I can't even remember what it was, and I'd laughed, and then she got this terrified look on her face, like she'd done something wrong. What did you tell her? That Mama would be furious if we stopped laughing. That Claire fought so hard to stay alive precisely so we could keep living, keep finding joy, keep being a family, even if it looked different than before. He turned to face Madeline fully. You're not intruding. You're honoring what Claire wanted for us. For Sophie to have a mother figure, for me to have a partner, for our family to grow instead of just surviving. Madeline's tears spilled over. I want to be worthy of that. You already are. How can you know? Because you're here. Because you gave up everything safe to take a chance on us. Because Sophie loves you and kids have perfect instincts about these things. He wiped her tears with his thumb. Because I love you, and I trust my instincts too. She kissed him then, desperate, grateful, promising everything she couldn't yet put into words. When they finally pulled apart, she was smiling through her tears. I have something for you, she said. I know we're supposed to wait until Christmas, but I need to give it to you now. Madeline? She was already digging through her suitcase, pulling out a small wrapped package. Open it. Inside was a key, Simple, silver, with a small tag attached that read home. It's to my new apartment, Madeline said quickly. Not like move in immediately. We're not ready for that. But I wanted you to have it. To know you're always welcome. That it's not just my place, but yours too. And Sophie's. She was talking fast, nervous. Is that too much? It's too much. I can take it back. Ethan kissed her, stopping the spiral. It's perfect. Really? Really? He turned the key over in his hand, feeling its weight. I have something for you too. Was going to wait until Christmas, but now feels right. He disappeared into his bedroom, returning with a small box. Madeline's hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small butterfly pendant. Simple, beautiful, unmistakably meaningful. Sophie helped me pick it out, Ethan said quietly. She said you needed a butterfly to remember us by when you're in New York. For the next 2 months until you move. Madeline couldn't speak, could only nod as fresh tears streamed down her face. Ethan took the necklace and fastened it around her neck. She touched the pendant like it was made of glass, like it might disappear if she looked away. I'll never take it off, she whispered. You don't have to. I'll never take it off, she repeated, firm. It's perfect. You're perfect. This is perfect. We're far from perfect. Perfectly imperfect, then. Christmas Eve morning arrived with Sophie jumping on Ethan's bed at 6 a.m., despite strict instructions that 7 was the earliest acceptable wake-up time. Madeline, who'd fallen asleep on the couch and migrated to the guest room around 2 a.m., emerged bleary-eyed and smiling. Is it Christmas yet? Sophie demanded. Not for another day, Ethan groaned, but we have so much to do. We have to make pancakes and go ice skating and look at lights and make more cookies because I ate 7 of them last night. And Sophie breathed. They spent the day doing everything on Sophie's elaborate list. Ice skating at Seattle Center, where Madeline fell approximately 12 times and laughed every single time. Looking at Christmas lights in the botanical garden, Sophie running ahead while Madeline and Ethan walked hand in hand behind her, making cookies. This batch only slightly less burned than the previous attempt. That evening, they went to Fontainebleau. Ba took one look at the 3 of them together and started crying. You came back, she said to Madeline, pulling her into a tight hug. Smart girl. Finally smart. Finally, Madeline agreed. They ate their soup slowly, savoring every moment. Sophie told Ba about Madeline's new apartment, about the butterfly garden they were going to plant, about how Madeline was moving to Seattle forever and ever. Forever is long time, Ba said, but she was smiling. I know, Madeline replied, catching Ethan's eye. I'm counting on it. Christmas morning arrived with Sophie's shriek of joy at 7 a.m. exactly. She'd been watching the clock, waiting for acceptable wake-up time. Presents were opened in a flurry of paper and excitement. Sophie got books about butterflies, art supplies, and a telescope for stargazing. Ethan got a new watch from Madeline, simple, elegant, with an inscription on the back that read, All the Time in the World. When it was Madeline's turn, Sophie thrust a poorly wrapped package at her. This one's from me. I made it myself. Well, mostly myself. Daddy helped with the hard parts. Inside was a painting, Sophie's best work, painstaking and detailed. It showed 3 figures on a beach, a man, a woman, and a small girl. They were holding hands, watching the sunset, and in the sky above them flew a dozen butterflies in various colors. That's us, Sophie explained unnecessarily. At Golden Gardens, where you and Daddy talked. I added the butterflies because butterflies mean transformation and becoming new, and I thought that fit. Madeline couldn't speak, could barely breathe. She pulled Sophie into her lap and held her tight, tears streaming down her face. Do you like it? Sophie asked, worried. I love it. It's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever given me. Really? More beautiful than jewelry? More beautiful than anything, Sophie beamed, then scrambled off Madeline's lap. Okay, now you have to open Daddy's present because I helped with that too, and it's really good. Ethan handed her a small envelope, suddenly nervous. It's not much, just, well, you'll see. Inside was a photograph. Ethan and Sophie at the park, taken the day Madeline had pushed Sophie on the swings. But Madeline was in the photo too, captured in profile, head thrown back, laughing with pure joy. Ethan had somehow gotten all three of them in one frame. I asked Mrs. Chen to take it, he explained. That day at the park, I wanted to remember what you looked like when you let your guard down. When you were just happy. Below the photo was a handwritten note in Ethan's careful script. This is what home looks like. Welcome. Madeline pressed the photo to her chest, unable to form words. Sophie patted her knee sympathetically. Grown-ups cry a lot at Christmas, she observed. Happy tears, Madeline managed. Still tears, though. They spent the rest of Christmas Day in gentle chaos, a walk through the snowy park, hot chocolate that Sophie insisted needed 17 marshmallows, a movie marathon that turned into Sophie falling asleep on Madeline's lap halfway through the second film. I don't want to move, Madeline whispered, looking down at Sophie's sleeping face. She's perfect like this. She's perfect always, Ethan said, but especially like this. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the snow fall past the window, the Christmas tree lights casting colored shadows across the room. Finally, Madeline spoke. I need to go back to New York tomorrow, for 6 weeks, to finish everything properly. I know. But this time it's different. How? This time I'm not leaving. I'm just going to pack up a life I don't want anymore so I can come home to the one I do want. She touched the butterfly pendant at her throat. This time I know exactly where I belong. Ethan kissed her forehead. 6 weeks. We can do 6 weeks. And then I'm here. Really here. Every day. Every morning. Every bedtime. Every burnt cookie and park visit and spelling test and scraped knee and butterfly lecture. Especially the butterfly lectures. Sophie stirred in Madeline's lap, mumbling something about cocoons. Ethan carefully scooped her up and carried her to bed, Madeline following behind. They stood in Sophie's doorway, watching her settle back into sleep, and Ethan felt something click into place. The missing piece he'd been feeling for 3 years wasn't missing anymore. It was right here, standing beside him, watching his daughter sleep with the kind of love that couldn't be faked. Thank you, Madeline whispered. For what? For letting me in, for giving me a second chance, for trusting me with her. Thank you for showing up. They stood there for a long time, neither wanting to move, neither wanting the moment to end. Finally, reluctantly, they returned to the living room. Tell me about New York, Ethan said. What's left to do before you can leave? Madeline settled onto the couch, and for the next hour she walked him through her exit strategy. Client handoffs, apartment packing, furniture decisions, the logistics of relocating a life across the country. Some of it was practical. Some of it was emotional. All of it was necessary. My mother wants to help, she said, with the packing. Says it'll give us time together. That's good, right? Terrifying. We haven't spent more than 2 hours together in years. She laughed nervously. What if we have nothing to talk about? Talk about Sophie. Show her the painting. Tell her about the butterfly garden. You make it sound simple. It is simple. You're just overthinking it. I overthink everything. I've noticed. She threw a couch pillow at him. He caught it, grinning, and the lightness of the moment felt like breathing after being underwater too long. That night, after they'd finally convinced themselves that staying up until 2 a.m. talking was probably a bad idea given Madeline's early flight, Ethan walked her to the guest room. They stood in the doorway, neither wanting to separate. 6 weeks, Madeline said. 6 weeks, Ethan agreed. Call me every day? Every day. And FaceTime so I can see Sophie? Every night, 8 p.m. I'll be back before you know it. I'll know it, but I'll survive it. She kissed him goodnight, long, sweet, promising everything the next 6 weeks would test. When she finally pulled away, her eyes were bright. I love you, she said. Both of you. My whole heart. We love you too. Get some sleep. You too. Neither of them slept much. Ethan lay in his bed, listening to the apartment settle, thinking about the next 6 weeks, about Madeline packing up her New York life, about Sophie's reaction when Madeline left in the morning, about the future that felt both terrifyingly close and impossibly far away. In the guest room, Madeline stared at the ceiling, touching her butterfly necklace, repeating to herself that this was real, that she was doing this, that in 6 weeks she'd be back in Seattle not as a visitor, but as a resident, as family. Morning came too quickly. Madeline's flight was at 9 a.m., which meant leaving by 6:30. Sophie woke up at 6, sensing something was wrong before anyone said a word. "You're leaving," she said, standing in Madeline's doorway. "Just for a little while." "How long?" 6 weeks. I have to pack up my apartment and finish my work, and then 6 weeks is forever. I know it feels like that, baby, Madeline said, kneeling down. But I promise I'm coming back. February 15th. I already have the plane ticket. I already have my new apartment. I already have everything arranged. What if you change your mind? I won't. But what if you do? Madeline pulled Sophie into a tight hug. Then your daddy will drive to the airport and drag me back here himself. But I won't change my mind. Seattle is home now. You're home. They drove to the airport in heavy silence. Sophie sat in the back, clutching Mr. Whiskers, fighting tears. Ethan drove with his jaw clenched, hating goodbyes, hating airports, hating the next 6 weeks already. At the curb, Madeline hugged Sophie for a long time, whispering promises and reassurances. Then she turned to Ethan. 6 weeks, she said. 6 weeks, he agreed. And then you're ours. I'm already yours. Then 6 weeks until you're home. She kissed him, not caring who saw, not caring that Sophie was watching, not caring about anything except making him understand that this wasn't goodbye. It was, see you soon. Then she was gone, disappearing through the automatic doors, and Ethan stood holding Sophie's hand, watching planes take off, counting down the days until one of them would bring Madeline home for good. In the car, Sophie was quiet for a long time. Then, small and hopeful, she asked, "She's really coming back, right, Daddy?" Ethan looked at his daughter in the rearview mirror, 7 years old and already too familiar with loss, already too practiced at protecting her heart. "Yeah, baby, she's really coming back." "Promise?" "Promise." Sophie nodded, satisfied, and turned to look out the window. And as they drove home through the post-Christmas Seattle morning, Ethan touched the watch on his wrist, read the inscription for the 100th time, and believed, really believed, that some promises were meant to be kept. The first week without Madeline felt like learning to breathe underwater. Possible, technically, but unnatural and exhausting. Sophie marked off days on a homemade calendar she'd taped to the refrigerator, 42 squares, each one a day closer to February 15th. Every night at 8 p.m., they'd FaceTime, and Sophie would tell Madeline about her day in exhaustive detail, while Ethan watched his daughter's face transform from cautious to radiant. "Only 35 more days," Sophie announced on day 7, crossing off another square with purple marker. "That's 5 weeks. 5 is better than 6. "Much better," Ethan agreed, though 35 days still felt like forever. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Madeline's voice came through the phone, tired but determined. "I packed up the living room today. Donated most of the furniture. Turns out I don't actually like anything in this apartment. It was all just expensive filler." "What are you keeping?" "My father's desk. A few photos. The coffee maker because I'm not a monster." She paused. "Everything else feels like it belonged to someone I don't want to be anymore." "Who do you want to be?" "Someone who comes home to people instead of an empty apartment. Someone who knows what her daughter's favorite color is." "It's purple, by the way," I asked Sophie. "Someone who doesn't need a reminder to eat real food because there's someone cooking dinner who actually cares. That's a good someone to be." "I'm terrified I'll mess it up." "You will mess it up. Everyone does. But you'll also figure it out." Madeline laughed softly. "You're very bad at reassurance." "I'm very good at honesty. There's a difference." By week 2, a routine had formed. Morning texts from Madeline, usually something about packing progress, or a funny story about her mother's attempts to help. Sophie's evening calls, growing longer each night as her worry receded and excitement built. Late-night conversations between Ethan and Madeline, talking about everything and nothing until one of them fell asleep mid-sentence. "My mother asked about you today," Madeline said during one of those late calls. "Wanted to know if you were serious or just a phase." "What did you tell her?" that you're the most serious thing in my life, that I'm moving across the country for you and your daughter, and I've never been more sure of anything. How'd she take it? She cried, happy tears, I think, said she'd been waiting years for me to choose life over work. Madeline's voice cracked. She's coming to visit in March. Wants to meet you both properly. Is that okay? Of course it's okay. She's your mother. She might be intense. She'll probably ask you inappropriate questions about your intentions. She'll definitely tell embarrassing stories about my childhood. Sounds perfect. You say that now. Week 3 brought complications. Richard called Ethan directly, which was both unexpected and mildly terrifying. She's panicking, Richard said without preamble. Won't admit it, but I know her. She's second-guessing everything. Ethan's stomach dropped. Did she say that? She doesn't have to. She's reorganizing spreadsheets that don't need reorganizing, calling clients at midnight to check in. Yesterday she asked if I was sure I could handle the company without her. 3 times. What do you need from me? Remind her why she's doing this, because right now she's spiraling and I'm worried she's going to talk herself out of the best decision she's ever made. That night, Ethan waited until after Sophie's call to bring it up. Richard says you're panicking. Madeline went quiet. Richard needs to learn boundaries. Is he wrong? Long silence. Then, small and frightened, what if I can't do this? What if I get to Seattle and realize I'm terrible at being domestic? What if Sophie realizes I'm not her real mother and resents me? What if you realize I'm too broken to fix? Madeline, listen to me. You're not broken. You're just human. What if human isn't enough? It's all any of us are. Ethan took a breath. You want to know what Sophie asked me yesterday? She asked if you were going to be her real mom or just her dad's girlfriend, and I didn't know how to answer because we haven't talked about it. But you know what she said when I told her I wasn't sure? What? She said it didn't matter what we called it. She said you already felt like her mom because you show up and you listen and you care about butterfly facts. That's what makes someone family. Not blood, not paperwork, just showing up. He heard Madeline's breath hitch. I'm showing up. I promise I'm showing up. I know. Richard knows. Everyone knows except you. I'm scared, Ethan. Good. That means you care. Now stop reorganizing spreadsheets and finish packing. She laughed through her tears. I really hate that Richard called you. I really love that he did. By week 4, the apartment in New York was mostly empty. Madeline sent pictures, bare walls, boxes stacked high, the physical evidence of a life being dismantled. Her mother had come every day, helping pack, asking questions, slowly rebuilding a relationship that had been neglected for too long. She told me something yesterday, Madeline said during their nightly call, about my father, about the year before he died. What about him? Apparently he'd been planning to step back, to semi-retire, let Richard take over more responsibility. He wanted to travel with my mother, spend time with family, actually enjoy the company he'd built instead of being consumed by it. Her voice broke. But then he got sick, and he never got the chance. And I watched him die still working, still pushing, still trying to prove something that didn't need proving. And you were about to do the same thing. I was already doing it. For 2 years I've been following his path exactly, working myself to death trying to honor his memory. But that's not what he wanted. He wanted to live. He just ran out of time. You haven't run out of time. No. Thanks to you, I haven't. Week 5 crawled by with agonizing slowness. Sophie had started making lists, things to show Madeline when she arrived, places to take her, butterflies to look for in spring. The refrigerator was covered in her planning, colorful and chaotic, and so hopeful it made Ethan's chest ache. Only 1 more week, Sophie announced at breakfast on day 35. 7 days, that's basically nothing. It's definitely something, Ethan said, but less something than 42 days, way less. That evening, Madeline looked different on the video call. Lighter, somehow, like she'd set down something heavy and forgotten she was carrying it. I gave my last client presentation today, she said, handed everything over officially, signed the final papers. I'm done. How does it feel? Terrifying, freeing, like jumping off a cliff and discovering I can fly. She smiled, radiant. I'm coming home, Ethan, really coming home. In 7 days, I'll be in Seattle and I won't be leaving again. Sophie squealed so loud Mrs. Chen knocked on the wall. 7 days! That's almost no days! It's still 7 days, baby, Ethan said, but he was grinning. The moving truck leaves tomorrow, Madeline continued. Everything I'm keeping fits in a 10-foot truck. Turns out a whole life can be pretty small when you remove everything that doesn't matter. What matters? Sophie asked. You, your dad, pictures and memories and this butterfly necklace I haven't taken off since Christmas. She touched it, smiling. Everything else is just stuff. The final week felt both endless and too short. Ethan cleaned the apartment 3 times, convinced everything had to be perfect. Sophie rearranged her room twice, trying to decide if Madeline needed to see her rock collection or her butterfly drawings first. Mrs. Chen made enough dumplings to feed them for a month, insisting that Madeline would be too tired to cook when she arrived. You're good for each other, Mrs. Chen said, pressing containers of dumplings into Ethan's hands. That girl needs family. You and Sophie need family. Sometimes the universe just knows. I hope the universe is right. The universe is always right. You just have to trust it. February 14th arrived, the day before Madeline's flight. Sophie had insisted they make a welcome home banner, which currently stretched across the living room in crooked, glitter-covered letters. Ethan had bought flowers, purple irises, Sophie's choice, and cleaned the apartment one more time even though it was already spotless. That night, Madeline called earlier than usual. I can't sleep. I'm too excited and nervous and terrified. Cold feet? Ethan asked, heart in his throat. Warm feet, hot feet, feet that are ready to run towards something instead of away from it. She paused. Ethan, tomorrow I'm getting on a plane and my entire life is in that plane with me. 1 suitcase, 1 box of important documents, and a truck full of furniture that's probably going to arrive 3 days late. That's it. That's everything. Is that enough? It's more than enough. Because I'm coming home to you. We're not much. Just a small apartment and a 7-year-old and a guy who drives for a living. You're everything. Don't you get that? You're the first people who ever made me want to stop running. The first place that ever felt like home. Her voice shook. I'm so scared I'm going to mess this up. Then mess it up. We'll figure it out together. Promise? Promise. February 15th dawned clear and cold. Sophie woke Ethan at 5 a.m., 3 hours before acceptable wake-up time, already dressed and clutching Mr. Whiskers. We need to leave now, she announced. Her flight doesn't land until 9:30, baby. But what if there's traffic? What if we're late? What if she thinks we forgot? We're not going to be late. They arrived at the airport at 8:30, an hour early, but Ethan hadn't been able to deny Sophie's pleading. They waited in baggage claim, Sophie holding the banner she'd insisted on bringing, bouncing on her toes with barely contained energy. 9:15, 9:30, 9:45. What if her plane crashed? Sophie whispered, fear creeping into her voice. It didn't crash. Flights are just delayed sometimes. But what if, Sophie, breathe. She's coming. At 9:53, passengers started emerging from the secure area. Sophie gripped the banner tighter, eyes locked on the doorway. Ethan felt his heart hammering, suddenly understanding Sophie's fear. What if something had gone wrong? What if Madeline had changed her mind? What if this was all too good to be true? Then she was there. Walking through the doorway with a single carry-on bag, hair loose around her shoulders, wearing jeans and the sweater she'd worn at Christmas and the butterfly necklace she'd never taken off. She looked tired and nervous and absolutely beautiful. Sophie screamed, her signature move at this point, and ran, banner trailing behind her like a cape. Madeline dropped her bag and caught her, spinning her around, both of them crying and laughing simultaneously. You came back, Sophie sobbed. You really came back. I really came back, forever this time. You promise? I promise. Ethan approached slowly, giving them their moment, but Madeline reached for him with her free hand, pulling him into their embrace. They stood in the middle of the airport, a small family, complete, finally, and let the crowd flow around them like water around stones. Welcome home, Ethan whispered into Madeline's hair. I'm home, she whispered back. Really, truly home. They drove to Madeline's new apartment first, the one in Fremont with the balcony overlooking the canal. The moving truck wouldn't arrive for 3 more days, but Madeline had shipped a few essentials ahead. The apartment was mostly empty except for an air mattress, some kitchen supplies, and the painting Sophie had made, already hung on the living room wall, the first thing anyone would see when they walked in. It's perfect, Sophie declared, running from room to room. The balcony is huge. We can fit so many butterflies here. That's the plan, Madeline said, watching Sophie with soft eyes. And your bedroom is big enough for a reading chair. You need a reading chair. Everyone needs a reading chair. I'll add it to the list. After Sophie had explored every corner twice, they walked to a nearby cafe for lunch. Normal, domestic, exactly what Madeline had been craving for 6 weeks. They ordered sandwiches and coffee and hot chocolate with too many marshmallows and talked about nothing important. Sophie's upcoming science project, Ethan's new driving clients, Madeline's plan to join the local community garden. I start my new client schedule next week, Madeline said. 3 clients, 20 hours a week, all remote except for quarterly meetings. I'm terrified I'm going to hate having free time. You won't hate it, Ethan said. How do you know? Because you'll fill it with things that matter. Sophie's school events, park walks, learning to cook something besides takeout. I can cook, Madeline protested. You heat things up. That's not cooking. Sophie giggled. Daddy's right. You need cooking lessons. I can teach you. You're 7, almost 8, and I make excellent cereal. That's not cooking either, baby, Ethan said, but he was smiling. They spent the afternoon making Madeline's empty apartment feel less empty. Mrs. Chen had sent a care package, dumplings, tea, a lucky bamboo plant she insisted would bring prosperity. Ba from the pho restaurant had sent soup, enough for 3 meals. Even Richard had sent something, a framed photo of Madeline and her father at her college graduation, both of them grinning, before work and ambition had complicated everything. He's proud of you, Ethan said, watching Madeline stare at the photo. Your father, wherever he is. How can you possibly know that? Because you chose to live instead of just survive. That takes more courage than any career ever could. Madeline set down the photo carefully, then turned to face Ethan fully. I need to tell you something. Something I've been thinking about for weeks. His stomach dropped. Okay? Not bad something, good something, maybe. She took a breath. I want to be more than your girlfriend, more than just Madeline who lives nearby and visits on weekends. I want to be family, really family. You already are family. But I want it to be official, not marriage, not yet. We're not ready for that. But maybe moving in together in a few months, finding a place that's ours, not mine or yours, but ours. Ethan felt his heart skip. That's a big step. Too big? No, just big. He pulled her close. Let's give it 3 months. Let you settle in, figure out your routine, make sure Seattle actually feels like home. Then we'll talk about next steps. 3 months, Madeline agreed. But for the record, Seattle already feels like home. Because you're here. That evening, they had dinner at Ethan's apartment. Mrs. Chen's dumplings heated up because none of them could actually cook properly. Sophie insisted on setting the table with fancy napkins she'd made from construction paper. The banner still hung across the living room, crooked and glitter shedding, but perfect. After dinner, Sophie pulled out a small wrapped present. This is for you, for really coming back. Inside was a bracelet Sophie had made, purple thread woven with tiny butterfly charms. Simple, handmade, probably slightly too small, but Madeline put it on immediately. It's beautiful, Madeline said, tears in her eyes. It matches your necklace. So now you have 2 butterfly things to remember us. I could never forget you. But now you have reminders, just in case. After Sophie went to bed, easily, happily, secure in the knowledge that Madeline would be there tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, Ethan and Madeline sat on the balcony despite the February cold. I have something to ask you, Madeline said quietly, about Sophie, about me being in her life. Okay. What do I call myself? To her teachers, to other parents, to the world? I'm not her mother. I'm not her stepmother. I'm just what? Ethan thought about that. What do you want to be? I want to be her mom, not her only mom. Claire will always be her first mom, her real mom. But I want to be the one who shows up for parent-teacher conferences and school plays and scraped knees. I want to be the one she calls when she's scared or excited or just needs to talk. Her voice broke. I want to matter to her the way she already matters to me. You already do matter. She's been calling you my Madeline to everyone who'll listen. Not my dad's girlfriend, not the lady who visits. My Madeline. Really? Really? And when she's ready, when you're ready, maybe that evolves into something else. But for now, you're her Madeline, and that's enough. Madeline wiped her eyes. I've been thinking about something else too. Something that scares me. What? What if I mess her up? What if I'm too focused on being perfect and I forget to just be present? What if she grows up resenting me for trying to replace her real mother? First, you're not replacing Claire. You're adding to Sophie's life, not erasing her past. Second, you're going to mess up. Everyone does. I mess up daily. But Sophie's resilient and forgiving, and she already loves you. That's not going anywhere. How do you know? Because she asked me last week if you were going to be at her birthday party in April. Not if you could come or if I'd invite you. She assumed you'd be there. Because that's what family does. Madeline's tears spilled over. I don't want to let her down. Then don't. Show up, be present, love her. That's all she needs. They sat in silence for a while, watching the lights reflect off the canal water, listening to the city breathe around them. Finally, Madeline spoke again. I quit my job, moved across the country, and restructured my entire life for you and Sophie. And I'm not scared about any of that. The only thing that terrifies me is the possibility that I'm not enough. That you'll wake up one day and realize you settled for damaged goods. Madeline, look at me. Ethan waited until she met his eyes. I'm not settling. I'm choosing. Every single day, I'm choosing you. Complicated, workaholic, sometimes difficult you. Because you're also brave and loving and willing to blow up your whole life for a chance at happiness. That's not damage, that's human. I love you, she whispered. So much it scares me. Good. I love you too. And it should scare you. That's how you know it matters. March arrived with rain and new routines. Madeline's furniture finally showed up, 4 days late, but intact. Ethan and Sophie helped unpack, turning the empty apartment into something that looked lived in. Sophie claimed a corner of the balcony for their future butterfly garden, already planning what to plant. Madeline settled into her new work schedule. 20 hours a week felt simultaneously like too much and not enough. She'd catch herself reaching for her phone to check emails that no longer existed, starting to stress about meetings she no longer had to attend. But then Sophie would call asking for help with homework, or Ethan would text inviting her for lunch, and she'd remember why she'd made this choice. How's the adjustment? Her mother asked during one of their weekly calls. Harder than I expected, easier than I feared. That's adulthood in a nutshell. I miss the work sometimes, the intensity, the feeling of being indispensable. But I don't miss who I was becoming. I don't miss sleeping 4 hours a night and forgetting to eat and measuring my worth in billable hours. Madeline looked around her apartment, Sophie's drawings on the fridge, Ethan's jacket on the back of her chair, signs of life everywhere. This is better, scarier, but better. Your father would be proud. You keep saying that because it's true. He worked himself to death trying to build something that would outlast him. You're choosing to actually live while you can. That takes more courage than any career. By mid-March, the rhythm felt natural. Madeline would work mornings while Sophie was at school. Afternoons were for errands, grocery shopping, learning to cook real food with varying degrees of success. Evenings were for family, sometimes at Ethan's place, sometimes at Madeline's, sometimes at the park or the aquarium or Fothendo, where Ba had started setting a permanent spot for Madeline without asking. You're regular now, Ba declared one Friday evening. Family regular, that's best kind. Sophie's 8th birthday arrived in April with typical Seattle weather. Rain in the morning, sun in the afternoon, a rainbow at exactly the right moment. They had the party at Madeline's apartment, the space now full enough to hold Sophie's school friends and their chaos. Madeline had stressed for a week about party planning, consulting Pinterest and parenting blogs, and texting Ethan approximately 47 questions about 8-year-old preferences. "You're overthinking this," Ethan had said the night before. "I've never thrown a kid's birthday party. What if I mess it up?" "Then Sophie will still have a good time because she's 8 and easily entertained by pizza and cake." The party was chaotic and perfect. Sophie and her friends ran wild on the balcony, played games Madeline had carefully planned, and destroyed a butterfly-shaped cake with gleeful abandon. When it was time for presents, Sophie opened Madeline's gift last. A complete butterfly garden kit, everything needed to raise caterpillars into butterflies. "We can do it together," Madeline said nervously. "On the balcony. Watch them transform." Sophie threw her arms around Madeline's waist. "This is the best present ever. You're the best present ever." After the other kids left and the cleanup was done, Sophie sat on the balcony with Madeline and Ethan, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Can I ask you something?" Sophie said, uncharacteristically hesitant. "Anything," Madeline replied. "Are you going to be my real mom, like, forever?" The question hung in the air. Ethan held his breath, giving Madeline space to answer. "I want to be," Madeline said carefully. "If that's okay with you. I know I can't replace your first mom. I don't want you to replace her. I want you to be my second mom." Sophie looked at Madeline with 8-year-old wisdom. "People can have 2 moms, right? One who's in heaven and one who's here?" "Yeah, baby. People can definitely have 2 moms." "Good. Because I asked Mama. I talk to her sometimes at night, and I think she'd like you. You push me on swings just like she did, and you listen to my butterfly facts even when they're boring." "They're never boring," Madeline said, voice thick with tears. "Sometimes they're a little boring," Sophie admitted, "but you pretend they're not. That's what moms do." That night, after Sophie had finally gone to sleep at Ethan's place, and Madeline had returned to her apartment, she called Ethan in tears. "She wants me to be her mom," Madeline sobbed. "Her real mom. Not just her dad's girlfriend. Her actual mom." "I heard. What do I do with that? How do I live up to that?" "The same way you've been doing it. Show up, listen, care." He paused. "You're already her mom, Madeline. She's just making it official." "I'm terrified I'm going to fail her." "You won't, and even if you stumble, we'll figure it out together. That's what families do." May brought the 3-month mark. True to their agreement, Ethan and Madeline sat down to discuss next steps. Madeline's lease was month to month. Ethan's apartment was small but manageable. The question was simple but enormous. Were they ready? "I think we should look for a new place," Ethan said. "Not mine, not yours, but ours. 3 bedrooms, 1 for Sophie, 1 for us, 1 for an office or guest room. Somewhere with a yard for that butterfly garden." "That's a big step." "I know, but we're already living like a family. Might as well make it official." "What does Sophie think?" "I haven't asked her yet. Wanted to make sure you were ready first." Madeline took a deep breath. "I'm ready, terrified, but ready." They told Sophie that weekend over ice cream at Molly Moon's. Her reaction was predictably enthusiastic. "A real house with a yard and a room for butterflies?" Sophie bounced in her seat. "Can we get a dog too?" "Let's start with the house," Ethan said, "but dogs love butterflies." That's not even remotely true. They spent the next month house hunting, a process that revealed exactly how different their priorities were. Ethan wanted practical, good schools, safe neighborhood, manageable mortgage. Madeline wanted perfect, updated kitchen, spa bathroom, architectural details. Sophie wanted a yard big enough for at least 17 butterflies. 17 is very specific, the real estate agent noted. "It's a good number," Sophie said seriously. They finally found it in June, a small craftsman in Finney Ridge, 3 bedrooms and a backyard that was mostly overgrown garden but had potential. It needed work, needed updating, needed someone to love it back to life. It was perfect. "This is it," Madeline said, standing in the empty living room. "This is home." "It needs a lot of work," Ethan warned. "So did we. We figured it out." They moved in July 1st, a sweltering Seattle summer day that had everyone questioning their life choices by noon. Mrs. Chen brought dumplings. Bob brought soup despite the heat. Richard flew in from New York to help, mainly to confirm that Madeline was genuinely happy and not having a prolonged breakdown. "You look different," he said, watching Madeline direct furniture placement while Sophie ran circles around the movers. "Different how?" "Lighter. Like you finally figured out that success isn't measured in billable hours." "Took me long enough." "Better late than never." He pulled her into a hug. "I'm proud of you for choosing this." "Me too." By evening, the house was chaos, boxes everywhere, furniture in wrong rooms, everyone exhausted and sweaty. They ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the floor of their new living room, paper plates and plastic cups, because all the real dishes were still packed. "To new beginnings," Madeline said, raising her plastic cup of cheap wine. "To family," Ethan added. "To 17 butterflies," Sophie finished, and they all laughed. That night, after Sophie was asleep in her new room surrounded by unpacked boxes, Ethan and Madeline stood in the backyard looking at the overgrown garden that would become Sophie's butterfly sanctuary. "A year ago, I was in a hotel room in Seattle for a $950 driving job," Ethan said quietly. "Had no idea my entire life was about to change. A year ago, I was working 80 hours a week trying to prove I was worthy of my father's legacy. Had no idea I was about to find something actually worth living for. Do you regret it? Giving everything up?" Madeline turned to face him fully. "I didn't give up anything. I traded a life I didn't want for a life I do want. That's not sacrifice. That's wisdom. Wise and humble. Nice combination." She laughed, shoving him playfully. "I'm working on the humble part. Take your time." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the neighborhood settle into sleep, feeling the weight of keys in their pockets, the tangible proof that this was real. "Ethan?" Madeline said quietly. "Yeah?" "Ask me." "Ask you what?" "You know what." He did know. Had been carrying the ring in his pocket for 3 weeks, waiting for the right moment. This moment, sweaty, exhausted, surrounded by moving boxes and chaos, was probably not what he'd envisioned, but it was them, perfectly imperfect. He pulled out the small box, hands shaking slightly. "Madeline Sterling, will you marry me?" She didn't hesitate, didn't pause, didn't second guess. Yes, absolutely yes. The ring was simple, a single diamond on a silver band with tiny butterflies engraved on the sides. Sophie had helped pick it out, insisting that Madeline needed butterflies because that's what reminds her of us. "It's perfect," Madeline whispered, watching it catch the streetlight. "You're perfect. This is perfect. We're far from perfect. Perfectly imperfect, then." They kissed in their overgrown backyard, engaged and exhausted and exactly where they were supposed to be. When they finally went inside, they found Sophie sitting on the stairs in her pajamas, grinning. "I heard," she announced. "You're getting married." "We were going to tell you in the morning," Ethan said. "Morning's boring. Now is better." Sophie launched herself at both of them. "Does this mean Madeline's officially my mom now?" "If you want her to be," Ethan said. Sophie turned to Madeline, suddenly serious. "Do you want to be my mom? Like, really, really?" "More than anything," Madeline said, tears streaming down her face. "If you'll have me." "Obviously I'll have you. You're already my mom. This just makes it official." Sophie paused, thoughtful. "Can I call you Mom, or is that weird?" "You can call me whatever feels right." "Okay, Mom." Sophie tested the word, smiled. "I like it, Mom," Madeline sobbed, pulling Sophie into a tight hug. "I like it too." They stood in the chaos of their new home, a family built from grief and loneliness and the courage to try again. Not perfect, not easy, but real. August arrived with clear skies and the beginning of Sophie's butterfly garden project. Madeline and Sophie spent hours in the backyard planting milkweed and bee balm and purple coneflowers. They released the butterflies from the kit Sophie had gotten for her birthday, watching them flutter around the garden before disappearing into the neighborhood. "Do you think they'll come back?" Sophie asked. "Maybe. Or maybe they'll find other gardens and make new homes there." Madeline squeezed Sophie's hand. But we'll plant more flowers, attract more butterflies, create a place they want to return to. Like you did, you found a new home and decided to stay. Exactly like that. They set the wedding for October. Small, intimate, just family and close friends in the backyard they'd spent all summer transforming. Sophie insisted on being the flower girl and also the ring bearer because I can multitask. Madeline's mother flew in a week early, ostensibly to help but mainly to finally meet the people who'd saved her daughter's life. She took one look at Ethan and Sophie and burst into tears. "Thank you," she told Ethan, "for giving me my daughter back." "I think she gave herself back," Ethan replied. "We just provided a reason." The wedding day arrived perfect. Clear October sky, leaves turning gold and red, the butterfly garden in full bloom despite the season. Sophie wore her yellow dress, the one Claire had bought, the one that meant everything. Madeline wore a simple cream dress and the butterfly necklace she'd never taken off. The ceremony was short and sweet. Richard officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this. Sophie cried through the entire thing, happy tears that she tried unsuccessfully to hide. "Do you, Ethan Brooks, take Madeline Sterling to be your wife?" "I do." "And do you, Madeline Sterling, take Ethan Brooks to be your husband?" "I do." "And do you, Sophie Brooks?" Richard had gone off script here, making Sophie's eyes go wide. "Accept Madeline as your mom, to annoy you with homework questions and embarrass you at school events and love you unconditionally for the rest of your life?" Sophie laughed through her tears. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me by the internet, I pronounce you a family. You may kiss your bride, hug your daughter, and start your beautifully chaotic life together." The reception was in their backyard. Ba's soup, Mrs. Chen's dumplings, a cake Sophie had helped decorate that was slightly lopsided but made with love. They danced to terrible music, told embarrassing stories, celebrated love and second chances and the courage to try again. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, a monarch butterfly landed on Madeline's shoulder. Just for a moment, delicate and perfect, before flying away into the evening. "Did you see that?" Sophie whispered, eyes wide. "I saw it," Madeline whispered back. "That was Mama, saying she approves." Madeline looked at Ethan, who nodded slightly. Whether it was Claire or coincidence didn't matter. What mattered was that Sophie believed it, that she'd found a way to hold both her mothers in her heart, the one she'd lost and the one she'd found. That night, after the guests left and Sophie was finally asleep, Ethan and Madeline stood in their backyard under the stars. Married now, officially family, no longer two broken people trying to survive, but one whole family learning to thrive. "A year and a half ago, you picked me up from a hotel for a $950 job," Madeline said quietly. "I was exhausted and lonely and convinced that work was the only thing that mattered. A year and a half ago, I was a single dad barely holding it together," Ethan replied, "convinced that surviving was the same as living. We were both wrong. Spectacularly wrong." Madeline touched the butterfly necklace at her throat, then the ring on her finger. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible, for loving me when I was unlovable, for giving me a family when I didn't know I needed one. Thank you for showing up, for staying, for choosing us every single day." "Every single day," Madeline agreed, "for the rest of my life." They kissed under the stars, in the garden they'd planted, in the home they'd built, surrounded by evidence that sometimes the best things in life start with a simple transaction and end with transformation. That sometimes falling apart is necessary to become something new. That sometimes the $950 job isn't about money at all. It's about opening a door to the only kind of wealth that actually matters. Inside the house, Sophie slept peacefully, dreaming of butterflies and families and all the beautiful ways that broken things can heal when given enough love and time and courage. And in the garden, if you looked closely, you could see a few late-season butterflies still fluttering around the flowers, making their home in a place that had been created specifically for them. Proof that with patience and care and the right conditions, anything could transform into something beautiful. Even a lonely millionaire and a heartbroken single dad and a 7-year-old girl who missed her mother. Even them. Especially them.